Firebase Anaconda is like in the worst defensible place you could put a firebase in. You had the mountains all around it, and you were right up against this little village that it shared a wall with you. There was one way in, one way out, and it started off very, very simple, just little skirmishes, pop shots, pray and spray. At some point, that changed. You could see people moving and communicating, supporting by fire while they moved. These guys knew what they were doing, and they were closing with us. It kicked it off, crazy tracers, explosions, things going off. And round came in, it hit the swing arm, and popped up in, and ricocheted up into my arm. Thank God I had my arm on top of the gun. If I hadn't had that there, that round probably hits me in the face. I did what I needed to do, put a tourniquet on, cinched it up, and then you got right back in the gunfight, because of course what happens, they crank it off.
Did you have a sense of where you fit into the broad scope of what the mission is in Afghanistan?
Yeah. So
when hunting isn't about hunting at all. Team Dog features comprehensive and customizable meal plans with dry and raw food options to meet your dog's unique nutritional needs, including digestive sensitivities, allergies, or selective eating. Did you know combining 75% dry food with 25% raw food delivers robust, nutrient-dense meals for your dog? Be your dog's hero with Team Dog. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, it's both an honor and a pleasure to welcome my next guest to the podcast. He spent 23 years in the Army Special Forces. He served in South America and the Middle East as a Green Beret. He was shot in the arm and lost a leg due to injuries in combat, recipient of 2 Purple Hearts, a Bronze Star, and the Combat Infantryman's Badge. Served in the Florida State Senate and is now the Lieutenant Governor of Florida, running for the Governor of Florida. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, Jay Collins.
good to be on, Mike. Appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, thanks for coming. It's an honor to be able to sit down with you. And Florida and Texas, I think, a lot of times are pretty comparative in the culture, the size, the just types of people that move there. So I see a lot of parallels and similarities. Plus, with the shared military special operations background,
That's right.
I'm excited to have you on. What's the last full book that you've read?
Well, like many of us, I have a little bit of ADHD, so I read several books at once and kind of jump around a little bit.
Yeah.
Milton Friedman, his economic books, you're always good to refresh those. So I kind of keep that rolling. I listen to a lot of audiobooks stuck in airplanes or in a car where I can just sit there and get information in. So I've always got Friedman moving. It's good balance, right? Economic Facts and Fallacies was another one. Just going through there, looking at a different model, different approach. There's a couple others, history books. Was going through quick listens on Lincoln on leadership. Was another one that was right up there in that top 5 to 6, all simultaneously. It's really interesting. It goes through his memoirs, and it puts them all into a book format, so you can hear some of the anecdotes and the pieces that he brought forward in everyday language to turn it into a leadership approach. It's really interesting modeling.
Wow. Is there a singular component or aspect of Lincoln that surprised you and that was kind of a takeaway from that isn't largely known?
Well, I think when you look at him, the thing that I'm really taken by was how much was on his shoulders across an entire nation. Yeah. He profoundly believed in what our founding fathers created. He believed in the Republic, and he believed in drawing this together. But can you imagine coming off of a civil war, being a president, and driving this thing forward, and then letting people go back with their horses, with their weapons, and saying we're all Americans? The way he handled that, that's pretty ballsy. Yeah. That's incredible courage under fire. And then we know, obviously, what happened. Yeah. But he was so resolute and mindful and aware in just what he did, how he communicated, what he said. One of the best lessons I've learned is he would write a staunch word, right? A reply to someone who gave him a scathing, letter in his office. And he would put it in the drawer, and he'd walk away for a day and come back and review it later. That's good advice for everybody, especially with Twitter and Facebook and everything else going crazy, right?
Yeah, I mean, with social media, it seems like that's almost impossible. If you wait a day, everything's moved on, and But yeah, the principle behind sitting in your emotions for a period of time until you actually respond is
stop, think, analyze, respond.
Yeah, great advice. Do you have a morning routine as the position that you're in dictates such a crazy schedule?
Up until recently, I absolutely did. I made sure that I walked my kids to school. That was the foundational part of our day. We live less than a mile from the middle school and elementary school. Yeah. The high school is a little bit further down the road. But I had our youngest, Colton, was in elementary school. Gabe is in middle school. Now Gabe's going to high school and Colt's going to middle school. Yeah. So we'd walk them there every single day. No matter how our day started, I tried to do that 3-4 out of 5 days whenever possible. It just starts it right. It's a foundational piece. That's the key part of it. For me, anything I need to do for myself is left of that. So when I want to go to the gym, when I want to go train, when I want to do those things, I have to do that left of the issue, so I'm prepared to do what I have to do with them because it's really important to start it that way. Now, I'll tell you, the last few weeks, all that's out the window. It's just frenetic. Yeah. It's like being on rapid deployment for months.
Imagine. But yeah, with that, I think the kind of almost the look behind the curtain that I'm curious about is the almost like emergency bat phone mentality. Like, is there a process for And I want to be cognizant of not divulging your security tactics or giving anybody who would try something squirrely the playbook. But if something happens, is there like all these procedures of waking you up or getting a hold of you that are pretty significant?
Yeah, there's certainly procedures all in place, and it varies by person, by home, their family situation, their experience. And then if it's a state emergency, those are far different than, say, a death threat or an imminent threat on our home. One of the things that was really shocking was the amount of death threats we get in office. I would never imagine being so angry at someone because of political things to threaten them, their wife, their kids. And that happens all the time.
Has there ever been like the context associated with why they're doing that was even remotely rational? Like the decision that you made, it was just something they disagreed with?
It was just fundamental disagreement. The first time was when I ran constitutional carry for the state of Florida. And we're clawing back our individual freedoms. We had death threats from all over the state of Florida, outside the state of Florida. When we banned socialism and communism, we had some doozies there. Banning China from buying our land, that was also my bill. That one came in multiple languages, which was pretty interesting. It is what it is.
None of those things seem like they should be that controversial or even partisan.
Preach, man. We have to take care of ourselves first. I'll never apologize for being Florida first. Never apologize for being America first. Our nation's blessed by God, man. We've got to defend it. I signed that oath just like you, man. That never expires. I would rather die than let our nation fail.
Agreed. Do you have a favorite quote?
I have several, actually. I often, right now, think a lot about Ronald Reagan and how he communicated, how he saw this. He was a very strong conservative, but you know what? He understood how to tell the story. He was an entertainer, but he also was very resolute. I'm going to paraphrase this. He was often called the great communicator, but he refuted it. And he said, I'm not the great communicator. I simply communicate great things. We got to talk more about this. And I love when President Trump talks about this. The golden age of America is the same thing that Ronald Reagan talked about. Our nation's been blessed by God. If we stop ripping ourselves apart at the seams and talk about the things that make America what we are, our ideas, our ideals, our principles, we're going to be okay. This nation will persevere. But, it's going to take states. We're a republic for a reason. As Benjamin Franklin said, we gave you a republic if you can keep it.
I agree. I am curious. Do you have a perspective or an opinion on Trump's form of communication, say, compared to Ronald Reagan?
I think it's the right person for the right time. We had to have someone who was willing to step in and just get rid of the BS, man. There's so much, we talked about it earlier a little bit, silver-tongued people in politics who just say nonsense, dribble, just garbage, and they don't get to the point. The world needed someone who could step in and just say, all right, here's the problem. That's stupid. We're going to rip the Band-Aid off. We're going to move on. Now, you think eventually much like the human body, I think our nation has a political pH where it's normal, but we had veered so far to the left. We were in danger of becoming a completely different nation.
Yeah.
You had to drag this thing there, and you had to have someone who had the courage and conviction to have candor, frankly, and just speak the truth.
I agree. There's a couple follow-up questions in terms of your response to that for the listener, I promise I'm going to get to, but I know if I do now, it'll divert the interview for probably an hour. So we'll get back to that. I promise. I want to get through these questions, the lightning round questions, and some of your background first. Being a former Spec Ops guy and in such a 2A friendly state as Florida, coupled with death threats and et cetera, how do you handle the concealed carry issue EDC wise personally for yourself? Is that something that even with security and going in and out of government buildings and always having, either state patrol or law enforcement of some form or fashion, do you still carry? Are you comfortable talking about that?
Yeah, so I when I'm by myself, yes, I have a gun with me.
Yeah.
I do. We're an open, we have open carry now. I hate how it had to happen, but in the end, we got where we needed to be. Of course, I ran the permitless carry, so you don't have to have a permit now. You can just do what you got to do. Though, as always, I recommend people get the permit for state reciprocity.
Yeah.
It just helps, right? Until we get the whole nation taken care of, it just makes the paperwork and the nonsense easier for these guys.
Yeah.
But you don't have to have it, right? And I love that. I have a couple of things. Obviously, we use a lot of Glocks in the unit, in an SF. I love my Kimber 45.
Really?
It's a Cadillac, man. It really is. It just feels right. There's something awesome about how it feels.
Have you shot the Staccato?
I have shot the Staccato.
That XC.
I don't own a Staccato, though I wouldn't mind owning a Staccato.
The XC is pretty tough to beat. It's a little big for concealed carry, although I don't think it's too big. I have one and carry it routinely, but I think that maybe the Staccato P is maybe the better happy medium for that.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the XC. I do have a Kimber. I appreciate those too. But I guess I'm curious, like, if you're in the office and even surrounded by security, like, are there times where you still carry in those environments, or is it really only
not as much because of how I have to do things in all of the different pieces? No one's ever pushed, but in the end, if I have to, if we're going into a threat environment, I know there's things available for me should we need them. I'm not going to go out. I'm not a soft target, right? That's not how this works in my life.
You got to do it. I guess, is there a legality for governor, lieutenant governor going in and out of like Capitol buildings and stuff? Are you legally allowed to carry in that environment?
Yeah, you're not really supposed to in those buildings.
Without the law enforcement credential, I suppose, even for you guys, you're not supposed to.
Though I do have an old Henry rifle on my wall above my desk in the Capitol. Cool. It's pretty great.
Yeah, that's awesome. What was your favorite thing to do growing up?
I grew up on a farm, so I think you're going to have two phases, right? I grew up on a farm, so we had horses. We would get out there and get in the farm truck, the swather, the combine, and just get out there and let it rip. We had 3,000 acres of farmland at one point, so I literally could just drive and go see the world, right? It was a great way to grow up. Once our family lost our farm and we moved into town, I got really focused in on sports, like many of us, and it was just getting in there and getting better. I saw it as a way to get out my frustrations, to push a little harder, and I thought it was going to be my opportunity moving forward. So, work my tail off.
Yeah. What age did you lose the farm, and why did you guys lose it?
So the Carter years were pretty tough. Growing up in northeastern Montana, the drought was brutal. And our family maybe made some tough choices. Alcohol was an issue sometimes. As things went on, alcohol and drugs became a little bit of an issue with parts of our family. And unfortunately, those choices, they manifest themselves into financial issues. Yeah. When we sold the farm, my dad, my grandfather who adopted me, my grandparents adopted me, I call them mom and dad, he had multiple heart attacks, 3-4 heart attacks. It was really rough. So that added cost. And that on top of just the drought, on top of taxes, on top of not being able to make enough money when we would sell the wheat, they sold the farm for pennies on the dollar, moved to town, and that's really where it kind of changed everything. Yeah, it's just death from 1,000 paper cuts. They just couldn't get above the water, drowning.
That's tough. When you mentioned your grandparents raised you, do you mind speaking about why your parents weren't in the picture?
Well, I was born to a 16-year-old kid.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I think I know who my birth father is, but I know genealogically what my body, where the heritage comes from. But in the end, I think I know.
Yeah.
But your family isn't who gives you the cells, right? It's who raises you. My grandparents were my mom and dad. They gave me a home, they gave me opportunity, and they gave me hope.
Yeah.
We didn't have much, but I'll tell you what, man, they gave me everything they could. My dad died in high school, and my mom had a pretty rough time actually after that. And you do what you got to do, but can't even imagine where I'd be. Probably would have ended up in foster care or other things somewhere around the country.
Wow. Any contact with your birth mom at all?
No.
None. Wow. Is that something that bothers you at all, or you're?
No. I'm very pragmatic about it. When I was little, sometimes it did. Like, why? What's the deal? But what I've come to grips with is she just is someone who needed a different approach to life. It wasn't personal. She just wasn't prepared to be a mom.
Yeah.
So you move on, right? It's okay. That's why I'm so bullish on adoption. Look, I'm pro-God, I'm pro-gun, I'm pro-life. That's who I am. But if we're going to be pro-life, we got to solve adoption. You got to solve foster care. Right. We got to lead on that and get families, kids into families, and take care of families. Bring that thing back into a normal dynamic.
I love that approach. I couldn't agree more. I think it seems like, I don't have any experience with it, admittedly, but from the outside looking in, it sure seems like it could be run a lot better nationwide than it is. Did you have siblings, or was it just you?
Yeah, so it's what you would expect, a little bit of a hot mess, right? I have a couple of a half sister and half brother. Half brother I've not seen since I was probably 7.
Oh, wow.
6. My half sister, I haven't seen her. Sometimes we talk. When I was adopted, my aunts became my sisters. So very crazy, right?
Yeah.
That's where I came from. We were a very close-knit family when I was young, but really, as always, when the farm goes away and things change, the family drifts apart, people move, and it is what it is.
Yeah. What age were you when you moved more into the city and focused more on sports?
Man, I was like 9.
9. What sports did you focus on?
Well, I grew up in a town of less than 1,000 people. You played everything,
yeah.
Right? So I ran track, football, played baseball some, basketball. I was in the choir. I was in the band. I was in whatever you needed to be in, even speech and drama, right?
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. Did any of the activities stand out as being the thing you were the most into and that shaped post-high school, or was there a catalyst that made you want to join the military?
Yeah, so my dad was actually a veteran, my grandfather. He was a World War II vet. He didn't really talk much, right? Like that generation, they're very stoic.
Right.
But what he did talk about, I always listened to. I understood the dynamic of World War II. I understood the dynamic of serving something bigger than yourself, the impact of America, and why good men needed to defend it. So I always knew the military was going to be something I wanted to get into. I didn't imagine after a couple of years in college I would jump in like that, but I'm glad I did. It was the right thing for me, especially at the time where I needed more direction and a little bit more input in my life. And but he was the one who got me there. I actually joined the National Guard in high school. Montana had a split-op program where you would go to high school, a basic training your junior year, some of your junior year, go to AIT, the second half, your senior year, and then you were in the National Guard, right? Well, I wrecked my knee, tore my ACL, MCL in high school, and ended up getting canned and kicked out of the National Guard, of all things.
Man, that's wild.
Medically retired before I even started.
Did that cause problems trying to come back in?
Oh yeah, it was a mess.
Yeah. Transferring or graduating high school, going into college, was there a sport that you focused on?
Yeah, football.
Football. And scholarship, that kind of thing going on?
Yeah, I had some offers.
Yeah.
And I was relatively dynamic, relatively athletic until I got to college, and I realized, oh Lord,
there's levels.
Yeah, this is not my cap. I'm not where they are.
Yeah.
I'm not tall enough, fast enough, good enough, or strong enough. Right.
Yeah.
I got a lot of work to do.
Yeah. Halfway through college, was that 9/11 and that sparked?
No, so I graduated in '94.
Oh, okay.
So 96, that's a couple years of college, did odd jobs, bounced around, joined the Army in 96.
Okay.
And then was actually an intel guy So you talked about what it did. I wanted to go combat arms. I wanted to do something that made sense. I had 3 jobs, even though I had like a maxed out GT and all the things they wanted. They're like, look, man, we don't let people in with your leg injury. So you can be an intel guy, you can be like an x-ray tech, or you can be an admin guy. I'm like, really?
None of those sound good.
That sounds horrible. Yeah. So I thought, well, intel, right? Maybe it's like James Bond, right? Yeah. I should have listened closer because that was not my experience. But, I always make a point to say, man, God's plan is bigger than ours. Growing up where I didn't know what I didn't know. I just didn't. Yeah. And it taught me strategy. It taught me operations. It taught me communication. And it taught me how to step in. I needed that. I had the physicality. I could do those things. I needed to understand how to take the horsepower here and put it into function on the ground, right? It just, no one ever showed me that.
Yeah. That's so interesting you say that, because I had, verbatim the exact same thought process, at least, when I joined the Navy in 96, and, at that time, being a SEAL wasn't its own rate in the Navy, and so there were like, I don't know, a dozen or so SEAL source ratings and intel specialists. Actually, the first one I picked was corpsman, but it was full. They were like, no, we already have too many, pick something else. And same thing, I looked at the list, I was like, intelligence specialist, maybe that's like some cool James Bond shit. And same thing, getting there, I was like, this is not at all what I thought. But
I was a square peg in a round hole. I'm sure you were the same way.
Same way, yeah. I guess, was there a light switch or a catalyst moment in college that you said, okay, now is the time?
Yeah, I tweaked my knee.
Yeah.
I went to, had a lot of offers, ended up wrecking my knee doing something I shouldn't have been doing.
Classic.
Got slower. And I was already really short. So when you're slower and short, you're not really a prime prospect anymore, right? Yeah. So I bounced out, got into a NAIA school, played there for a couple of years, and it wasn't coming together. I played well when I got to play. My knee was a mess. I was having all kinds of other issues, so I made a decision. I was like, this is not working. My leg is not going where I needed to go. I'm getting slower. I'm in the gym. It's getting worse. And I honestly, I didn't know how to train properly. Right. Our trainers at that level, they weren't
especially
prepared.
Back then too, right?
Oh, yeah. It was jack steel, get big, and then you can get fast, right? But you're missing so many core areas in just foundational fitness.
Yeah.
I had a good VO2 max, which was probably my saving grace, just naturally. I could rely on that, and that probably kept me from having real issues in life.
Yeah. All right, so you joined as an intel guy at first. Did. Walk us through the kind of process of ultimately ending up in Special Forces.
Sure. So I ended up in intelligence, went to basic, AIT, did those things, went to Korea. That was pretty interesting, right? You got to have a real mission, real things. I was there when the sub rolled up on shore in South Korea. We did hands across Korea, interjoining hands and trying to find the people who washed ashore. Yeah. But you got to see a real threat. And what was interesting is I worked on what's called the Battlefield Coordination Detachment. So I got to work with the GCC, the ACC, and deconflict the airspace, the ground space, and then water, just to see how things operated. There was no way, as an E2 in the Army, I should have been anywhere near all of that. And yet here I am briefing 06s and above. Every single day I was the only lower enlisted guy.
Wow.
That's it. So you can imagine I was everybody's special project.
Yeah.
I needed some love, probably. There's some rough around the edges things there.
Sure.
So I did that. Ended up going from Korea to Fort Carson, Colorado. That was okay, tactical. And then I got picked up on this nominated assignment. I still have no idea who nominated me. It's not in the records. All I know is I ended up going to Jack Molesworth in the UK.
Really?
Sure did.
Even to this day, you have no idea?
No clue.
Wow.
Yeah, never materialized, but somebody of some significance ended up nominating me. So I got there, and it was pretty wild, right? I was really hoping there was something kind of sexy. It was pre 9/11, and I thought at this point, I guess Intel is going to be the thing. I went to go to school, a BNOC at the time, to become an E6, make a little bit of scratch, right? Went back to Fort Huachuca, Arizona, and I met my wife, Layla. She was a CI. Actually counter intel, so for the record, she was way closer to James Bond than I was. And we don't share this story a lot. It was actually at a land nav course out there in BNOC that she got my attention.
Really?
She dropped her scorecard and this wasn't important. It wasn't something that she had to do to graduate, but she was so frustrated that she did that she took off running. She was going to go back and find her scorecard along the route and back. No one else would go with her. So I was like, I'm not letting her go by herself. So off we go. She found her scorecard. We ran back. She made the time, graduated with honors. But I was like, man, you got real heart. If you're willing to go dig into it, to go find a scorecard for something that's irrelevant just because you're holding yourself to a standard, we can probably be friends.
Yeah.
Right? Like at a minimum.
Awesome, man.
We dated for 2 months, ran off to Vegas, got married. We've been married for 25 years. Wow. Just wild.
Yeah.
We both deployed, ended up in SOF. She was in 7th Group as well. She got there before I did. I was in the 82nd. And when the War on Terror kicked off, I got brought to MacDill Air Force Base. And I got to work with a JIADF out of CENTCOM and a few other things. And I was like, I don't know who those dudes are, but they're pretty badass, right? Like,
what does that stand for?
The Joint Interagency Task Force.
Oh, okay.
I saw a bunch of Green Berets, Navy SEALs, interagency dudes, and then some of the tiered guys, right, roaming around there. And I was like, I'm going to do that. I didn't even know what that was, to be honest with you. That's a little bit of that, just not knowing what I didn't know.
Right.
And sure enough, man, came back, went to selection, didn't train up a lick, didn't know anything about it. I just knew that that's where I wanted to go, and this is a class that I have to go through to get it. And if you have to drag me behind a truck for a month, I'm not going to quit. Yeah. Like, that's just, I'm here. I'm going to make it. No other chance, no other choice.
And made it straight through?
Sure did.
Yeah.
Sure did.
Did your knee give you any big
It did. Yeah, off and on.
It, just for the record, is it the prosthetic side or the other side?
Prosthetic side. Why wouldn't it be?
Yeah. Man, that's wild. All right, so this is what, 02, 03 time?
So this is, 02. I went to selection.
Which, for getting into SF is about as prime time as you could get in, considering what happened.
It was the right time.
Yeah. What was your first duty station?
I never left Fort Bragg.
Oh, okay.
I spent 19 years on Fort Bragg.
Wow. Man.
Yeah.
How long from the time you went through selection until you went on your first deployment with SF?
So I got in the Q course in 03. It's kind of a crazy thing. Back then, when you left the regular Army to go SF, it was not a, hey, great job, we're proud of you. I wasn't allowed to clear. I had to use an open door, like pseudo open door policy to the Special Operations Commander. And then the SF, USAFIC at the time, commander saying, hey, look, I have orders to start the Q course in 2 days, and they're not going to let me clear.
Wow.
I mean, crazy, right?
Yeah.
I got called a coward and all kinds of things because I was going to Special Forces. So the day before, they gave me my clearing paper, so I ended up clearing in like 6 hours across Fort Bragg, spent a fortune at CIF, of course, and then jumped into the Q course, and off we went. So I got there in 03, went through the 18 Delta course. That's about 2.5 years, all told. Got to a group in late 04, early 05 as they were just wrapping up. My first job was actually to bury one of my best friends in the Q course, Leroy.
Yeah.
Leroy Alexander. Just an awesome dude, man. He was a Bravo, so he got to the group
quick.
18 months before I did, probably. Yeah. Just one of those amazing guys. Just nothing ever got him down. Hard-working guy, but always had a smile on his face. The guy that just dissolves the tension. Mm-hmm. That's the dude, right? He had come back, and I bumped into him at the Airborne PX on Fort Bragg. Wow. Just random. I was like, what are you doing back, man? I thought you were downrange. And, he said, hey, we came back. We were doing IVF. My wife got pregnant. They had a bunch of miscarriages like we had. And we didn't think we'd ever have kids, to be honest with you. So he was so proud, so excited, went back for the last 30 days of his trip, and his vehicle hit an IED. Yeah. The whole team, that whole crew inside the vehicle, I think it was 4 guys total at the time, passed away.
That's brutal.
It is.
Sorry,
it's horrible. But I had to go bury him in Arlington.
Yeah, wow. And then I imagine you deployed shortly after that? Or?
Yeah. I got to group. We were on the South America rotation, so you did 4 to 6 months, you come back and prep. 4 to 6 months, come back and prep, and then you go to the Afghanistan rotations.
Yeah. On the South America side, did you guys get to do anything other than just training, or was it all foreign?
Mainly FID.
Yeah. Any close calls or squirrely stories from down there?
A few.
Yeah. Anything you can share or willing to share?
Yeah. FARC was there. They were very real, right? They were always doing little stupid things to get attention, play games in the background. The coolest thing, and this will tie in later once we get into politics, you remember when they had the hostages there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
I had one on my show, actually.
Yep. Awesome.
Who lives in Florida, Mark Gonzalez.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
We ended up getting all called out. So I was in Cupiagua, up in the mountains, a complete crap hole, right? Yeah. And got brought back, and they took all the 18 Deltas. We thought we were going to go find these guys. They had a whole, they're like spies and friesing us out of places, right? And we're flying off to Bogota. We get there, and then they cancel the mission because something had shifted in the intel package. We were that close, right? All these medics, the hit force was there, and we were going to be there to deal with the aftermath. And just so close. The cool thing later is, having chased through the jungles and trying to find them and do different things like that, I actually had the opportunity to write a law in Florida to help them get their financial reward from the organizations in South America, the drug, the crime lords, the drug lords, all the cartel folks, and did that twice actually to help refine that package so they could get their due.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You did 2 of those rotations before Afghanistan?
Sure did.
So the first time you went in Afghanistan, I'm curious, just kind of expectation versus reality. Been in the military a while, done multiple soft deployments. What was going through your mind as you first land in Afghanistan?
Yeah.
Kind of what did you think was going to happen versus what did, and what was just?
Well, we were out at Firebase Anaconda. It was pretty squirrely out there. We flew in, and it was snow and ice up on the mountaintop. I was like, wow, glad I grew up in the snow, right? Yeah. There was horses there, so growing up on a farm was pretty useful. We actually rode them into combat.
Wow.
I didn't anticipate that necessarily, but that was, again, pretty cool. You could round up people pretty easily there. They didn't expect the bearded guys to be out there on horseback.
Were there any of your guys that had never ridden a horse?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yes.
That's awesome.
There were really 2 of us. Yeah. I grew up on a farm, and we had another guy who had experience.
Right.
And we just kind of went with it.
Yeah.
And, got people on there. These horses were a little feral. They hadn't been ridden in a while. So they had the Afghanis training them. But, come on, man.
Might as well be Mustangs.
Yeah, it was wild.
That's nuts. How many deployments did you do to Afghanistan?
Just the one.
Just the one. Did you do any in Iraq or not?
I did.
Yeah. Were those subsequent?
Yeah, they were after when I got to behind the fence.
Okay. For that Afghan deployment, can you walk us through kind of the operations that stand out and ultimately, what led to the injuries and Purple Hearts?
Sure.
And everything?
Sure. So Firebase Anaconda is like in the worst defensible place you could put a firebase in. You had the mountains all around it, and you were right up against this little village that could shared a wall with you. So you had plunging fire from all over the place, and it was there to protect this radio tower. That's it. But what's funny is 2 miles down the road, you actually have this giant old Soviet base with fields of fire, completely defensible. And at the time, they were like, no, you got to stay right where you are. You got to defend that radio tower. Why don't we just move it with us and put up a tower? Because this place sucks, right? But whatever. It is what it is. And it was pretty kinetic. It was like a 95% troops in contact rate. There was one way in, one way out. And it started off very, very simple, just little skirmishes, pop shots, pray and spray, right? Let it rip, and then they run off into the woodwork, right? That changed. At some point, you saw a diversification. And I was actually the gunfight where I got hit. So I had a round hit the swing arm and ricochet up into my arm. I'll walk through that. But I started seeing people moving and communicating. You could see them supporting by fire while they moved. That was a big change because until then it was just guys throwing rounds and launching stuff and then running away. These guys knew what they were doing, 110%, right? They were very well trained. They were maneuvering. And they were closing with us. They got up nice and tight, so they couldn't do gun runs because they were too close to the vehicles. That's a change, right? That's a big TTP shift. And when I got hit, I was on the back truck, on the back gun of the back truck. And they kicked it off, crazy tracers, explosions, things going off. And round came in, it hit the swing arm and popped up in. Thank God I had my arm on top of the gun. If I hadn't had that there, that round probably hits me in the face.
Wow.
Off the swing arm. Just bad habit, doing what I'm not supposed to do. Thank God. Yeah. I had no idea I'd been hit, really. I thought I was slipping in oil or water. And honestly, swear to God, the only thing I could think of is I hope the Rippets didn't get hit. Like caffeine, man. Yeah. It's what we need, right? Yeah. That's all I could think about. So when we finally, the ebb and flow of a gunfight, it goes up, it goes down, and you change the can, you pull it out, get a full can in, get prepped, get ready. And then I figured out what was going on. I had no idea I'd been hit. I really didn't think anything about it. And
she didn't feel any pain?
No. It was a real gunfight, right? So my heart rate was up. Yeah. It hit my arm, and I am looking at this. I'm like, well, crap. I check everybody else, and then I'm like, I realize I'm the problem. Yeah. And, put a tourniquet on, cinched it up, and then you got right back in the gunfight because, of course, what happens, they crank it off. Wow. So I pulled that thing tight, cinched it down, and I stayed in the gunfight. Eventually, my arm went dead, right? So now I'm just kind of clumsy. Now I really have to rest it on the gun because, I can't do anything with it. But in the end, we finished that up, cleared the village. I did what I needed to do. We put a pressure dressing on and, got through this. And I got off the gun as we went back. That was the call from the team leader at the time. And we went back. We had multiple people injured. I figured they were more the priority. I didn't think it was that big a deal, honestly. I thought I'd get through this. I'd grab the next bird, but we'll prioritize the guys who are bad. So I waved it off and put them on, and the pass closed up. There was no next helicopter for a couple days. And I started having issues with circulation and everything else. So we ended up opening my arm up right through here in the Firebase in Afghanistan and doing a partial fasciotomy to restore the circulation and just get everything that wasn't supposed to be there out.
Did you guys have an actual doc, or was it a corpsman doing that?
Nah, it was actually me and our junior medic, our weapons guy, and an engineer.
Jeez.
Yeah, briefs well now, but at the time it was not great.
Yeah.
We did a block on the elbow, a block on the shoulder. We opened it up and, finished that up, put a drain in, did a partial closure, and then I got the next bird out and had a bunch more surgeries. It was back on the Firebase in about a month.
Wow. Man, that's...
I refused to go to Bagram or Kandahar or anywhere, or to Germany.
Yeah.
Obviously I could have, but I was like, nah, man, I want to stay in theater. I'm going back.
Yeah.
In retrospect, what I didn't realize is there was a whole TSGLI thing. Like, I didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
Like, well, you didn't get evacuated out of theater. You aren't eligible. What?
Yeah. Man, that's wild.
Yeah.
All right, so you find yourself back within a month, and then I'm curious, how the rest of the deployment went, but also from kind of the big picture standpoint, did you have a sense of where the piece of your guys as a puzzle relates? It's like where you fit into the broad scope of what the mission is in Afghanistan?
Yeah. So third group at the time was more hearts and minds. Seventh group was very kinetic. We only talked about the hearts and minds if you were putting a round in it, right? And it was very, very kinetic. Ed Reeder at the time just wanted you out there doing presence patrols or movement to ambush. And we were in this very, very, very remote area. And we had to lock down that sector, right? It was up in the mountains of Afghanistan. Kosovo is gone. That was our role.
Yeah.
We were picked to go there because we were a very good team, competent, and we had to own this whole space. And we did. There were many things that happened that trip. They renegotiated contracts, so they paid all of our ASG and all the workers like 75% less, so they all quit.
Oh, wow.
So literally we were on the walls, manning our own walls, trying to find new security to vet them so we don't get more problems on the Firebase. Imagine being that remote. So what happens? Now the enemy's like, okay, we see. They start closing in, and we start hearing rumors they're going to try to overrun the Firebase. Like, really? Okay. That's pretty bold cotton, right? Sure enough, though, that's what happened. They started lobbing rockets and mortars and filling all that out. So, no one could really believe it. They were so shocked that they were actually going to have that much courage, wow, that much aggression to try to overrun a Firebase. And we were completely by ourselves. We were outside of QRF range. We couldn't even get drone support at the time.
Man.
We were that remote. So we had what we had. We actually had, when all of our people quit, the local Hazara tribe actually came around and helped do presence patrols around us to protect us. Now, how cool is that, right?
That's amazing.
You talk about by, with, and through. Those dudes with like pitchforks and guns that their grandfathers had
Wow.
were out there controlling our six. Just incredible.
Man. I guess I'm curious from a tactic shift standpoint. You mentioned that there was a point at which you noticed a significant change in their tactics. Did you ever understand, figure out, realize where that shift came from?
Yeah, it was foreign fighters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know where from?
You had some Chechens.
Yeah.
You had some Syrians. You had Iranian influence. Certainly, we pulled some. We were using 7 Bravos at the time. Some of them had 14s, and even beyond that, far better equipment than we had for night vision. Most of our team had a 7 Bravo,
Right.
so we're not using the best. When you started seeing that infusion of money, you knew this whole thing was shifting. The tactics, though, when you started seeing them maneuver and work in sequence and understand a strategic goal versus just lobbing rounds, it's a difference, right? When they started to overrun the Firebase, you saw coordinated fire. We had ZPU shooting off the mountain range off to our side. It'll wake you up in the morning, man, when it's using direct fire on you, right?
No doubt. That's a hell of a wake-up call.
For real.
Yeah. Can you walk us through the operation or operations that ultimately led to the injury?
Yeah, so I told you about this. It was a presence patrol gone bad on the arm. We were actually at the Firebase, and I got hit by a mortar. It hit the side of the building. I fell about 20 feet. Pretty anticlimactic, to be honest with you. Kind of did the upside-down turtle. Thank God I had body armor on. As I sat and I thought about how lucky I was, I think if I hadn't had body armor on, I fall completely different. But it gave a kind of an inverted V. As much as possible. So when I hit on the body armor, I found out later through x-ray that I rounded off a bunch of my T-spine, the spinal processes. Landing like that's bad for you.
Yeah.
And I ended up blowing out most of my lower back, like L2, 3, 4, 5. And I found out later through medical testing that I'd also blown holes in my inner ear, just, little stuff like that. It also had caused, because I guess I'm assuming overpressure, vascularity issues with the venous flow, the arterial flow, and then I had lymphatic loss as well. So what we had is 7 years after that is when they amputated my leg.
Wow.
So I didn't realize how bad I was hit. Yeah, I had some scratches, my back hurt, I had a headache. I thought I was pretty lucky. So what do, man? You dust off, you don't whine, you get up and you fight. That's what I did.
Wow.
Got back up on the rooftop, never imagined. I came back to Fort Bragg after that.
So you finished the whole deployment with those injuries. Wow.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, look, we all have a little bit of big dumb animal in us, right? But that's
some more than others, maybe.
For sure, right? And I know I'm a medic. Yeah. I should probably have known better, but I'm incredibly driven, just like most of our guys, right? Yeah. I was not going to leave our people there. I wasn't going to leave their side. I wasn't going to leave the Firebase unless I absolutely had no choice or I was so badly injured. And I didn't think I was that badly injured.
Yeah. Did I guess at the surface or face value, I guess, of the injuries to your leg at that time, was there anything visibly significant? It was all mostly a pressure thing?
Yeah, it was all fairly minor. Yeah. So what happened over the next few years, I went to, came back, you do the redeployment, all the bells and whistles and stuff you have to do for that, and I went to selection. And it was actually during selection that I started having weird things happen. I would be running with a ruck or doing training, and I'd be going straight and my leg would go left. So what do we do? I didn't focus on what could be medically wrong. I was like, God, you're a wuss. Stop. I won't use the actual word in your podcast. What am I doing? How can I train better? Why is this happening? I looked in. How do I turn it up a little bit further, right? And I just kept hammering it. So you go to selection, and now I'm tripping up mountains, down mountains. My leg is stumbling. So rather than take a knee, I start taping my foot. I'm a medic, right? So I'm just going to the first phase of self-triage, I guess, right? Went back, got put on orders to go to the Q course as an instructor because After 3 deployments, that was what we did at the time.
When you say the original selection that this was in, was this Delta selection?
This was at the unit, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, out in West Virginia.
And so medically you got out processed from that and then went back?
Yeah, I got dropped towards the end.
Yeah.
It performed okay, but, when you trip and fall down a mountain, it's not really great for your time with a rucksack, right? It was so frustrating, man. I knew where I needed to go.
Yeah.
So I came back, I changed my entire training platform, got on the cycle, did more distance, got on a step mill for hours, which frankly probably compounded a lot of the issues I had unknowingly.
Yeah.
And just, I knew I was ready, right? I got there and it got so much worse.
Wow.
I had a couple of instances where my back seized up. I couldn't get off my bicycle. I was locked in and I literally had to fall over and have people help me unhook. Like that should have been a wake-up call probably.
Yeah.
But we are who we are, right?
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to miss my opportunity.
Yeah. So this is, I guess, retraining to go back while you're a Q course instructor?
That's right.
Yeah. And then ultimately, what did that lead to where kind of the whole dream shattered as far as that?
Yeah, so I got there and got picked up, got towards the end, and they, obviously I was slowing down, having physical issues, and they said, hey, just come over here as a medic, 18 Delta, it'd be good. We got a shot to go. We'll figure out what's going on here. We'll get you healthy. So I was doing something right. I showed up there, and it was actually our physical therapist. She's like, what is wrong with your leg? I don't know. What's wrong with my leg? I had 3 inches of atrophy in my calf. I had like 5 inches in my quad and hamstring. I had no reflexes below the knee. I had pitting edema that was forming. You can see the hair starting to fall out in areas. So obviously there was a nerve issue. Secondary to ischemia from blood loss, blood flow issues. I don't know. Nobody knew. So they rushed me to Walter Reed. They put some bubble gum and duct tape into my back, pulled out some discs, got things put back together. I came back and I did, whatever you got to do as a broke guy to get healthy. And then I got back online, went to OTC. And it was actually the most humiliating failure of my life.
Really?
I got on the wall about a little over halfway through. My legs stopped working on a 5-story building climb.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't lift. I couldn't push. I didn't know what to do. All I knew is it hurts. I can't move my leg, and I'm stuck on the side of a 5-story building, and I'm trapped.
So this is actual OTC after selection? So you went through a second time and made it all the way through?
No, I got picked up as a medic.
Oh, okay.
So we send our medics
through
as well.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
And that's still an amazing opportunity, man.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. And you're not going to let that go, right? So hook or by crook, man, I was not going to not show up and be present.
Yeah.
And the pain sometimes, at this point, we're years after the injury. And I have gone through a lot. The back surgery, there was always a constant burning pain and just like it didn't feel right.
Yeah.
But it was these explosive like pops of what I now know is neuropathic pain where the nerve was dying. It would suck the air out of your chest. I mean, holy cow. I remember going through CQB and that thing would pop. I couldn't keep my mind straight. It was just horrible. You're talking an 8-9, but it didn't come up slow. It was just an explosion, like lightning down through my body.
Like super acute and totally unpredictable.
100%.
Wow. So you find yourself 5 stories up.
Yeah, and they had to rescue me. They dropped me from training, and I had an opportunity to stay on there, and I'm grateful for it, and take a job that I didn't want. And again, I always make a point to say God's plan's bigger than ours. I was never going to stop driving myself forward. I had to be forced to stop. My drive, my desire to be successful, my desire to serve was far greater than any pain that I was going to deal with. I could compartmentalize beyond belief. But in that place, if you're not at the tip, you're not hitting on all cylinders, you're not going to make it.
Like Ricky Bobby would say, if you ain't first, you're last.
That's if you're red, you're dead, man.
Yeah.
Right? And that happened. And as I was there, I performed very well. I earned respect, right? Showed up. I was still able to do the job physically, doing all the things I needed to do. Help out here, help out there, solve a problem, working in the WMD teams, right? Help them grow. So I got there, and finally I was in this giant brace called the Odiero up to my hip. It went all the way down. At this point, the hair's fallen out of my leg. The toenails have fallen out for the most part. The skin's kind of this weird blue color all the time. I've got no reflexes. I've got pitting edema. It's like Mr. Deed's leg, right?
Yeah.
It's just bizarre. And I'm still working, still operating, and I got told, you're done. Like, you're going to hurt yourself or somebody else. Like, you've got to go. And they sent me to the Mayo Clinic. And the Mayo Clinic was the first group to actually look at the entire composite issue. And what they decided was, like, you had a pretty severe overpressure thing going on here. They're the ones who helped figure out the ear issue, the inner ear. They found out all the nerve damage, found out the venous issues, the arterial issues, and everything that was in my leg. And they're like, look, you basically have a leg like an end-stage diabetic, secondary to everything that happened that day.
Wow.
And where it went untreated. And, you know, again, I got to take responsibility. I am who I am. You compartmentalize this. But the system, if you were able to perform, I was still, you know, in the top 1-2% as an NCO in the Army.
Right.
And if you're able to maintain that standard, how could you be hurt? What's funny is I found out there were a lot of guys like me who just had done this, and the system never really caught up with them until it just went off the rails like it did for me.
Yeah.
And when they amputated my leg, I woke up without pain for the first time in 3 years. Dude, let me tell you, it's like seeing the world clearly for the first time. You don't realize how much chronic pain jacks with your mind, and not having those explosions of pain. Oh my God, man. It was incredible. I felt great for the first time in years.
Do you think, or even know, had you addressed the issues in
I would
your
have kept my leg.
it could have saved it?
Yeah.
Man, that's brutal. I mean, like you said, God's plan is bigger than ours, but it's just that
you sometimes people in our world, you've got to learn humility. I was a 400 on a 300 PT score kind of guy.
Yeah. I barely talk about this, but it needs to be said. Around my mid-30s, something shifted. I trained the same, had the same discipline I've had my whole life, but everything felt harder. Recovery was slower, energy was inconsistent, focus wasn't there when it needed to be. And I couldn't point to anything that I was actually doing wrong. Now here's what most guys don't know. Men start losing testosterone around age 30, about 1% every year. But the part that really got me is this. Even when your body is still producing testosterone, there's a protein called SHBG that locks it up so you can't actually use it. It's like having money in the bank, but your debit card just doesn't work. Testosterone is there, you just can't access it. Now that's the testosterone trap, and that's exactly what Mars Men is designed to address. They sent this to me to try and give my honest take. There's 8 natural, clinically dosed ingredients. Tongkat Ali, Shilajit, vitamin D, zinc, boron, and more. There's no synthetics, no needles. But what I've noticed is steadier energy throughout the day. Not a caffeine spike, just consistent drive. Stronger in the gym, sharper mentally, made in the USA, third-party tested and backed by a 90-day money-back guarantee. Over 91% of users report higher energy levels. There's zero risk. For a limited time, our listeners get 50% off for life, plus free shipping and 3 free gifts at mengotomars.com. That's mengotomars.com for 50% off and 3 free gifts when you check out. After you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support the show and tell them that we sent you. These statements and products have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or condition. We're heading into summer, but the economic pressure isn't letting up for most families. Inflation is still grinding on everyday costs, groceries, gas, everything. And what ends up happening is people start leaning on credit cards just to keep up. High interest debt starts stacking up, and suddenly that financial cushion you worked hard to build starts disappearing. Here's what a lot of homeowners don't realize, though. You've probably got more equity sitting in your home than you think. And that equity can actually be the weapon you use to fight back. American Financing is helping families get out of that high-interest trap right now. They have salary-based mortgage consultants, not commission-driven salespeople pushing you into something that doesn't make sense. With mortgage rates in the fives, their customers are saving on average $800 a month by using their home equity to wipe out high-interest debt. $800 a month back in your pocket is real money in an economy like this. There's no upfront fees, no pressure, and if you start today, you could delay 2 mortgage payments. Call American Financing today, 866-891-3262. That's 866-891-3262 or americanfinancing.net/mic-drop.
At 220 pounds, at 5'9", I could go run a sub 10-minute 2-mile.
Oh.
I didn't have to worry about the physicality side until I was broken. I'd never been the broken guy in my life. And then I can't do all the things I think I can do. So now I've got to use other skills, other talents to figure out other ways to do this. But man, I had to learn to use help and get help.
Yeah. When the actual decision to remove the leg came to a front, was there any part of you that second guessed that?
No.
It was that
I was
bad,
ready.
It was like, yes, get rid of it.
I was there 3 years prior.
Oh,
this was in a weird time where the Army was like, nah, we're going to save everybody's leg.
Yeah.
Okay, my leg is stupid. It's a broken stick, right? Like, it's Mr. Deed's leg. You don't understand.
Yeah.
I just want to live my life. They're like, well, you should probably medically retire. I don't want to medically retire. I want to serve. I want to stay in the Army, and if you cut my leg off, I'll be fine. I'll figure out how to do it. And that was not how they thought.
Yeah.
So they're trying to figure out, like, what is going on here? Why is this such a mess? And they just couldn't do it because they couldn't compute and understand, why is this dude performing and in this unit with all of this going on? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Right? And, you know, that's why they select this, those traits.
Right.
You get there, and the desire to be where you need to be, where you want to be, all I wanted to be was on that ragged edge of freedom, working with guys like that wherever I needed to be. And whatever I had to do, I was going to do to stay there and earn my place.
That's fascinating. Once you did have the leg removed and now you're pain-free, was the recovery still a rough path? Or
I was in Walter Reed for 6 months.
Yeah.
I showed up. The most frustrating part of showing up, coming from a tiered organization, you weren't on the regular Army books. So it showed that, I kid you not, I hadn't done my annual training in their eyes since 2008.
Wow.
And they're like, why have you not done your annual training? I was like, I've done plenty, I promise you. We're good. And I'm trying to explain to them who I am and where I'm from, and they just are not read on. Like, they have no clue. They made me go up to a library. I'm on crutches. I don't have a leg. I refuse to be in a wheelchair, so I'm crutching around this stupid hospital, right? And they're like, well, you got to do your annual training right here. You got to do your sexual harassment and all of this. So I've got veins popping out of my forehead. I got frustrated. I crutched all the way down and found my way down to the bowels where the rehab place was, and I just figured it out. And it turns out that was the best place I could have been because the people read on to the program at the time were right there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, thank God.
Yeah.
I was ready to start swinging crutches at people. And, man, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Ended up there. It was Nick Lavery, Big Nick.
Oh, yeah, he's been on.
Yeah, so Big Nick was there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so he would be there. We didn't really talk much. There was mutual respect from the teams and where we were, and he did his thing, hammered it, broke it off. We had the same physical therapist, though, Kelly. Man, she was incredible. She was the only one who could really understand where we were coming from. We didn't want to talk. We didn't want to do stupid stuff. I just wanted to requalify as a Green Beret and get back to Fort Bragg. And then Ben Harrow. You know Ben?
I don't.
So Ben's a double amputee.
Oh, okay.
7th group guy. He was a captain and got hit. And all three of us were there doing our thing, and everybody else. That's actually how I ended up having the opportunity to stay in. I was old. I was at 18 years of service when they cut my leg off.
Yeah.
So I've managed to hang on and go through all of this stuff. And you remember Odiero?
Oh, yeah.
Ray Odiero? I don't wax philosophically about many general officers. I just don't, right? But that dude said exactly what he meant. He followed through, and he's really probably the single person who gave me the chance to stay in the Army.
Wow.
So I'm doing one-legged box jumps. Like, there's a puddle of sweat. It's just gross, right? Like, he walks up to me, and he's like, what are you doing, dude? Like, what's your deal? I'm looking at 4 stars because he's like 6'5", 3 bills, right? He's a big guy. and I'm trying to get my leg on and get situated. I'm like, oh God, this is not going to go good, right? I just want to work out. And he's like, well, who are you? What are you doing? And I said, well, I was at a SMU and I got injured, lost my leg, and now I want to stay in the Army. And I'm being told there's no chance. I'm at 18 years of service. I couldn't do continuation on active duty. They were like, you can't requalify. You can't be found fit for duty as an amputee. That's not how this works. There's no vehicle. And I said, I just want to stay in. Why are they able to tell me I can't do this? Just give me a chance to requalify, to earn my place in my tribe. If I can't do it, then kick me out. Like, that's all I want. So he took that to heart. He called the sergeant major of the Army, who then called my boss, my boss's boss, my boss's 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 boss, all the way up the food chain. And then they all called all the way down, officer and enlisted. And like, what did you do?
Who did you talk to?
I was like, you're not going to believe this. And they're like, okay, well, that checks out. That's what he said too. And they said, look, you're going to get your shot. You got to earn it though. So I did. I had to be found 100% fit for duty by the military as a one-legged Green Beret. So we went through and broke it down systematically. Everything I had to do, I redid. I requalified. Oh. Shooting, moving, communicating, fast roping, repelling, static line, JM, free fall, JM, hey-ho, hey-low. Everything that they could say wasn't possible, I did it. Now, there's some good lessons learned. Like, your leg will fall off in free fall if you have the wrong setup. Ask me how I know. Yeah. On a 100-foot rappel, or not rappel, a fast rope, your carbon fiber leg, don't use something with a lot of carbon fiber, because when it gets hot, it gets brittle. Yeah. It breaks. Yeah, that sucks.
Dude, that's amazing, man. That's impressive. So you make it all the way through all the things that it seems like they almost throw at you trying to get you to fail.
Well, I think the attorneys wanted me to fail more than anybody. Yeah. But it's always the attorneys.
Yeah. But you proved them wrong, and then what was the next step after that?
I did 5 years after. Yeah. I ended up in kind of a weird position. The OSW was standing up at the time. I got picked up to go stand up the OSW at a time we were bringing back the Jedburghs, setting up RSE, and getting into the roots of what SF came from, frankly. So I got to be a plank holder with that, developed some pretty cool courses like the NS Med course, which brought a lot of what we did back behind the fence in from a medical standpoint and injected it into what we did in SF much more efficiently. Spent my time there. We built up a deployable team that worked with the agency guys, a lot of the Omega folks, and put them downrange, augmenting and supporting a lot of those structures. And ended up doing some pretty cool stuff.
Can you, I guess, how much of what you did in that post-amputee status 5-year period can you share about what you were doing?
Some, not much.
I guess for what you can share, can you?
Yeah, so I ended up building programs, oddly enough. So when I got brought to the OSW, the problem I was presented was, hey, we have guys dying downrange and we can't go rescue them. They have no medics. We had the Jedburghs with no medics. We had the RSE who were singletons, right? One person.
What is the RSE?
Regional support element, okay. Like a CO,
okay.
Right? Very well trained, lots of school, go to the farm, all those things, and good program. There was no medics, so like, how do we treat them? We developed a course that actually gave them paramedic skill sets for our operators. It gave them a set formulary. It taught these guys how to save themselves, how to treat other people. We built that out of Hyde. We ended up with something like 27 18 deltas all working together on this thing. I mean, how crazy is that? Yeah, just a bunch of enlisted dudes. We brought on what we thought was the world's oldest 18 delta, Greg Risk, who was an 06 surgeon. I love Greg. He is my guy. So we could have an officer at the time, 1-0, who's a part-time, like a DEMA, I think was the reserve slot that he was in, out of USASOC, who would augment this for a year for the things he had to do. And other than that, it was just 18 deltas solving problems. We built a course, trained people, and got them deploying downrange, and we started to build out this entire apparatus to build medical support within the 4th Battalions. Wow. And it really led to a very unique austere medical capability, which has now launched into multiple companies, training people, augmenting what our soft operators do.
That's
pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's truly life-changing stuff for sure. I mean,
well, it taught me how to think differently about a problem. Like, you know how we staffed this? This was not the staffing process they were used to. I knew the SF commander, and I knew the number two. So I literally used the open door policy for my friend, briefed them on the project, got their approval, and then we backward staffed it through the the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5. Wow, were they butthurt. But we already had approval.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, the funding's there. Make this happen.
Yeah.
We saved lives within, I think it was like 90 days of the first class.
Yeah, that's awesome. What was the ultimate decision-making process for retiring / getting out?
I made a promise. Actually, I said, if it gets to the point where I'm having a hard time keeping up, it's time to hang it up. You either meet the standard or you don't. I don't want to be the weak link. I did all those things, and I had an opportunity to go back to some tiered organizations. There were some offers in D.C., and then there was an opportunity to jump into the regular SF and compete for Sergeant Major, right? So when you get injured, you kind of come off the tracks of career growth.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just, what do you do, right? I was like, all right, fine, we'll figure this out. So I took over as the first sergeant in the 18 Delta Committee in the course, right? So I've got all these students, inherently stressful job, but it was probably one of the coolest things I ever experienced. Imagine being a student coming through there and you have a one-legged Green Beret, 18 Delta, who's in charge as the senior NCO here, and that dude's out there still smoking everybody, right? Working hard.
Yeah.
So I had a little bit more motivation.
I don't know what does.
What's that?
If that doesn't inspire you, I don't know what does.
It was great.
Yeah.
But the part that I didn't really think about enough, and as I reflected back, it also gave them hope, man. Like, we don't leave our people behind. They gave an opportunity. Mm-hmm. We're going to let you earn your place in the tribe if you can. We're not going to give it to you, but if you can be here. It was good for them to see that promise made and that promise kept.
That's awesome.
And I got to be there as we shifted how we train people, rebuilt a lot of things for our training environment. But what I found is what should have taken me an hour a day was now taking me 2.5. It was just tough, man.
Yeah.
The physiologically, it's about 25 to 30% harder for me to do anything like running, jumping than it is with two legs. It's a different response. And, I was getting slower. I was struggling, and I wanted to follow through on my promise. Because if I screw this up, what's going to happen? The next guy is going to pay the price because of what I did.
Yeah, and I think, that's a tough kind of line to walk between ego and selflessness, that's a tough thing to decide.
I learned a hard lesson on ego going through what I did, man. Yeah. And I was like, look, we did the most good. I'm not going to get picked up for Sergeant Major. The Army at that point wanted younger Sergeant Majors. I was branch qualified, 18 Delta, 18 Zulu, E8 at like 14 years.
Wow.
I couldn't get picked up for Sergeant Major. I was too young. And then they shifted to wanting young guys when I was at the right age.
So
I was like,
in the worst window of...
I was. And there was a lot of us.
Yeah.
In retrospect, if I'd stuck around and held out, I probably would have picked it up on the next list.
Yeah.
But I'd already made my point.
Yeah.
I was moving on, and it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And what's funny is, while all I wanted to be was a Green Beret, behind the fence, I deployed to some different places, did some things, loved my time there. It wasn't what I wanted to do. But what did I learn? I got to see different things. I worked with the national labs. I worked in the WMD field. I did more medicine than I ever thought I really would. I was the medic who liked to shoot and blow things up more than I liked to do medicine until I did medicine.
Right.
And I really took it seriously. I was good at the trauma, but really excelling at my craft. I saw incredible people there, man,
That's
at the
awesome.
unit. The single best medics you would ever see.
That's cool. That's super cool.
Yeah.
So once you realize that you're not able to keep up as much as you want, you decide to get out, what was that transition process like?
It's a little weird. I honestly, when I requalified, I didn't know if I had completely hosed myself for VA. I was found fit for duty. I was the N of 1. Like, they told me, there's a chance that you won't get medically retired this way. You could have just minimized everything. What's odd is with VA math, I'm sure you've dealt with this too.
Yeah, I'll share it when you finish with this part of the story, but I had the exact same thing happen.
When I lost my leg, I was with all the compounding injuries and just the mess that my leg was, those injuries alone put me at 60 or 70%. When they cut my leg off, I didn't have 2 legs. So you don't have the compounding issue of 2 lower legs.
Yeah.
So it cut me down to 30%.
VA method stumped Einstein, I think. I mean, it's
it was ridiculous.
Shit ever.
I snuck in at 100%.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think the doc was like, look, you're really broken. And the fact that you kept serving, I don't understand you, but I'm not going to let this happen to you.
Yeah.
You know, there were people who had stubbed a toe and were getting 100%.
I know it. Yeah, I mean, so kind of similarly. So I, when I got back from Iraq, I went over to instructor, the advanced training instructor side, and I ended up getting valley fever. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's a coccidiomycosis, a fungal lung infection, and I lost almost half of my lung capacity permanently, 40% of it. And same kind of thing. I mean, at that time I was at like 9 years, I think, and they tried to medically retire me. Or the captain of the infectious disease ward at Balboa Naval Hospital was like, "Hey, we're going to medically retire you." And I was like, "Can we not do that by chance?" And he was like, "Well, not really, but," he's like, "Tell me what your thought process is." And I was like, "Well, I don't have a college degree. I wasn't planning on getting out. My first child is on the way. And you're telling me I'm going to be out of the Navy in 30 days with, $3,000 a month. Like that doesn't bode well for me. Is there any way that we can find a way to keep me in?" And he said, "Well, the nature of your job, like you need to be somewhere where you're not around lung irritants, for a number of years to kind of fully let that scarring tissue, it doesn't heal, but it finishes scarring over or whatever. And until it does, according to him, you need to take good care of them and not be around a bunch of gnarly stuff." And I was like, well, everything in our job is irritating to the lungs except being an instructor. And even parts of that are, breakout and Hell Week and some of the third phase and more advanced stuff is. But I said, if you can figure out a way to go over there, then you can stay in. And so I talked to my Master Chief and he talked to the Bud's Master Chief, and they just made like this backroom crack deal that E9s do. And so they got me over there, and I managed to stay in, get a degree, had both kids, but then when I got out, they A, wouldn't medically retire me at that point, and B, didn't do 100%, and I was just like, you guys were trying to medically retire me 3 years ago, and
right.
So yeah, it's such a nightmare, that whole process. But
it was a goat rope.
Yeah. And I know it's better now than it was, but it's still nowhere near as good as it should be.
Well, now that I'm in politics, when we get to that part of it, I'll talk about some of the things I want to do at the state of Florida and how we can change this. But man, when I did the first MEB after I lost my leg and I'm trying to go through this, they put us in a room with 200 people going through this process. I was the only one trying to stay on active duty.
Wow.
I was the only one with combat injuries. There was a girl next to me who had a bunion. She was a ballerina. Like, she came in a wheelchair. I was like, all right, well, she's got to be something. Honest to God, this is one of the few times where I was so disgusted, I just couldn't talk. Oh. She's going on and talking about her bunion and all of these things. And she's like, well, what happened to you? I just took my leg off and dropped it. I refused to talk. I don't often go to that place, but what do you say? I mean,
Well, I know, because I think it's probably the single source reason why it's so difficult for those that actually need to go through that process, why they have such a hard time doing it.
Sure is.
Because so many people take advantage of it.
The instructor there, I actually filled out a report on this at the time, was telling people, well, here's how you game the system. Here's the things you have to write so you can say you got PTSD in basic training or in the Army. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You're defrauding the government, man.
And you're ruining it for everybody who
100%
needs that program.
We had friends, I'm sure you did the same way, who got stitched up multiple times, got hit by rounds, kept operating, did all these things, and got like 40%.
Yeah.
30%.
No, all the time.
Yourself, right?
Yeah,
it's crazy.
I saw guys that were, completely broken, 30, 40%, and other people that they knew exactly what to say, how to say it, what entries to put into their record. And yeah, it's frustrating for sure. So after you go through that whole process, what was the first thing that you did as a civilian employment wise? Like, what was that?
Yeah. So like most of us, I told myself I was going to retire and be on a boat in the Gulf fishing. I really did. that lasted for about 8 seconds, maybe. Maybe in 8 fractions of a second. I don't know. It wasn't long. When I was in the hospital bed, man, it wasn't the Army. It wasn't the VA. It was nonprofits that actually were there for me more than anybody else.
Same here.
People I didn't know from places I'd never been showed up and they were like, hey, you want to go run a marathon? I was like, I don't even have a leg. No, leave me alone. Right? And they'd come back again. And then they'd push a little bit harder and a little bit more. But they didn't leave my family behind. The good ones didn't. Right? And that mattered to me. The biggest problem I had mentally, I didn't care about the pain. Like, whatever, man, I'm fine with pain. I didn't care about working through and doing the effort. I felt so guilty that I couldn't be a physical dad. I couldn't run and do the things I needed to, that my wife was having to carry more weight for me. It drove me crazy. And getting picked up to go do events where they would leave my family behind, it just compounded that and it ate away at everything I did. So I refused. I didn't take part in a single thing after that one experience that told my family they couldn't come. I refused to.
That's awesome.
Yep.
I mean, that's how it ought to be. I mean, you shouldn't have to do that, but I love the principle.
Well, they just didn't think about it, right? Yeah. They were well-intended, but they didn't think. So I got into a nonprofit job with Operation Barbecue Relief. Like, I'm not a food guy. I was a caloric intake guy, right? Yeah. Like, I don't care what it tastes like. I just want my proteins, I want my macros, my micros, and I want water so I can do what I got to do, and I need caffeine. Yeah. That's it. That's all I need. And then leave me alone. And these guys came and they served, a couple thousand people that were in and around this organization that I was in over at SWIC. I was like, that's pretty cool, right? They cooked barbecue, fed the families, all this stuff. And then they came back and did it again, and I dropped my retirement packet. And they said, hey, how would you like to come work in the nonprofit sector doing barbecue for people after natural disasters? We also want to start a veterans program. You should start that for us. All right, I'll give it a shot.
And was it in Florida, and that's why you ended up moving there? Or?
No, actually, they were out of Kansas City.
Oh, okay.
So my wife was a counter-intel agent, right? Like I said, I was a intel guy and then an SF guy. We may or may not have cased multiple locations around the country looking for the right spot. So we kid you not, we found school districts, housing areas, places we wanted to go. We checked the distance, we checked the people, we checked everything about it, and we settled in on Florida. And then after that, it was picking a place in Florida. So we literally went around the state, from the Panhandle over to the Space Coast, down to Miami, not for very long, up to Orlando. And then we went to Tampa, and we fell in love with the Bay, man. It was incredible. And we retired, closed everything out. You know how the MEB process works. It's a nut roll, man. Yeah. Like, you're on the precipice of getting out, and then the paperwork hits that point, and now you got you have to run like a madman to get out of the Army. So we're getting settled. We're picking the place. We found a home to live in and rent while we built. And we're going to come here because come to Tampa because Layla had cousins there. My wife, Layla, family. And we wanted our kids to grow up with family, cousins, because they've been isolated away from that for so long. We're there, we PCS, get to Tampa, and then we drive to California. True story, to go do the Breaking Bread tour. I ran and biked across America, 3,000 miles in 50 days. We fed 100,000 people hot meals to launch that nonprofit veterans programs. Wow. So from Skid Row in California all the way into Florida and back into Tampa, we fed 100,000 meals, and we did an average of 60 miles some days. I think the highest was 110 miles. Wow. I took the southern route in the summer. That was really bad logistically, planning-wise. Not ideal. It was super hot. And it turns out that there were whole roads that stopped being roads on the map. On digital maps, we found that out. So I had to then retrace my route and get on another road. So it was pretty crazy, man.
That's wild. That's amazing.
Yep.
So you find yourself in Florida. How did that transition into ultimately getting into politics? And was that a decision that you made, or was it more of kind of, we were talking before cameras, more handed to you?
Well, it was a decision I made, and then things happened to put me in that position. And, when I did this run and bike across America, I got asked many times, why don't you run for Congress? You're well-spoken. You're a smart guy. You obviously work hard. You're a little crazy, right? It seems perfect for Congress. I was like, that's a horrible idea, man. Like, why would I want to do that? Yeah. No, not a chance. I get in, and we're feeding all of these meals after hurricanes, wildfires, tornadoes, flooding, you name it, into the Caribbean, all across America, every state. And we're seeing people in their absolute worst. You walk up on a slab that used to be a home, and that family is looking at everything they own out in the ocean, out across the slab, and you see like a dad just trying to make sense of this while leading his family. We walk up, we give him a hug, hand him a meal, and we just sit there. You wouldn't believe the impact that simple act of kindness made. So we went on to serve about 14 million meals after hurricanes and tornadoes and everything all over the country. In Florida, it was Hurricane Michael, then it was Ian, then it was Idalia, Helene and Milton, Dorian, all of these. We just kept hammering meals. You know, after Helene and Milton, it was 1.65 million meals in like 33 days.
Wow.
A lot of stuff going on. But along that path, COVID happened. And then Afghanistan happened. And I'm sure like many of us, you started hearing calls, and interpreters and people we knew who had been downrange were being chased down and eradicated. Their families were being killed. And like, how do we deal with this? And in COVID, man, we saw government overreach. We saw the Biden administration put our kids in masks, lock them in away from their schools. They lost integration and communication time and growth. And I don't think we still have even a basic understanding.
No, I mean, both my kids were in high school in that window of time, and it was catastrophic.
It was.
And Texas was much better than most states, but even still, the public school system, I think it's going to be generational impact for sure.
For sure. And you look at the youth, our guys were little, right? So when you have that mask, you're losing the ability to understand emotions and read and see what people are really communicating, not just with words. And it really put kids at a setback. We're seeing our kids get screamed at when we wouldn't let them wear their mask, going across a parking lot. Like, what are we doing, guys? That coupled with Afghanistan, where Biden, turned off the power, the water, they left in the middle of the night. That's BS, man. Whether you wanted to be there for 2 years or 20 years, you enter with honor and you leave with honor. We didn't need to do that.
Right.
You do it the right way. And it's still a frustration, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure like many of us, I promised people freedom. I believed in what we did. And was I frustrated at times? Yes, it's a government operation. It sometimes sucks. But we needed to do that the right way. So I jumped in. I actually started running for Congress. True story. I didn't know anybody. I had no connections into politics. Our little guy, Gabriel, little at the time, he's now 14, about as tall as I am. I'm short, but he'll be taller than me. We have a rule in my household. Don't whine. I really hate whining. Either come right or don't come at all, but come with a solution. So he called me out. He said, well, Dad, you're whining about it. What are you going to do about it? Well, touche, right? Like, on one hand, that's pretty cool. He listened, right?
For sure.
That doesn't always happen. And then, like always, like, man, I'm not doing what I need to do. I'm making a mistake. I'm not living up to my own ethos, and I'm failing my family. So I literally cold called members of Congress, man. Found ways in, started running for Congress, didn't know what to do, didn't have a team, didn't have anything. And we started grabbing momentum because I just went and figured it out. Pretty soon we'd raised a ton of money, and I would have won that seat by 5 points in Tampa, running against I think she was a 14 or 16-year incumbent at the time. Wow. But we redistricted. And when that happened, it went from a winnable D+7 to like a Biden +19. Look, man, you could be Ronald Reagan reincarnate. You're not going to win that seat. It is what it is. So we all got shuffled around, and eventually Ron DeSantis heard about me. He brought me to Tallahassee, and I jumped into a state Senate seat running in essentially the same district against the mayor of Tampa's mother-in-law.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, crazy. Liberal Democrat, lesbian family, just whatever. I don't care what you do with yourself, but they were very liberal, right? Tampa is not a Republican stronghold, to say the least. And, I'm very far right. very conservative. I am not the normal person who runs in a seat like that. I was literally told to be the pothole guy. Go work local issues. Don't talk about conservative stuff. I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's my style. I'm pro-God, I'm pro-gun, I'm pro-life, and we told people this. We didn't hide from it, and you know what we found? People respected it. I didn't hide from it.
Even if they didn't agree, they could respect that you at least...
We agreed on more than not.
Yeah.
What they didn't understand, all the pundits, all the bureaucrats, they didn't want to have money wasted. They were financially and fiscally much more conservative than they were socially liberal. They just wanted to see the government work right. Yeah, we probably don't agree on abortion or guns, but we agree on everything else, and they're crazy. So we won by 10 in a D+3.
Wow.
Yeah, I literally had 5 months. We knocked 100,000 doors, put up a ton of TV and commercials, and when I got into the political side, I passed 55 bills in 3 years, which is more than most people pass in 8.
Forgive my ignorance on state government politics as far as the structure or logistics of it, but how does Senate versus Congress in a state house work?
So Senate, in Florida, you have 40 senators. You have 120 members of the House.
Okay.
So it's pretty big. My district for the Senate was about the size of a congressional district, just a hair smaller.
So do they break it down similar to nationally where there's like 2 senators per county or?
No, it varied.
Yeah.
We have some very sparse counties where you would actually have multiple counties in one senatorial district.
Okay.
It just varies.
Yeah, I got you.
I was very hyper dense.
Yeah. So 55 bills in 3 years. How did the transition from that turn into lieutenant governorship and the relationship with DeSantis?
I ran a lot of things that others didn't want to run or wouldn't run. My first bill was constitutional carry, right? Like, sure, let's do it. I didn't even know where to park. I didn't know how to log onto the computers. I had nothing. I'm like, abso-freaking-lutely, I'm here for this. Figured it out. We passed it. It was like 19 hours of unstructured debate getting screamed at by the left. Death threats. I've got people laying down in the hallways. This is my very first foray into politics. I'm like, what on earth did I do to myself? Yeah. This is crazy. And, I'm pretty sure most of the people in the system were like, where did this dude come from?
Yeah.
Like, he does not talk like us. He doesn't think like us. And he's just showing up and doing stuff. I just didn't fit the profile. Yeah. My second bill, we actually banned China from buying our land.
Which seems like a no-brainer, but...
Why do we have to make that something that's an issue, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, to me, it's similar with the communism, socialism thing. It's like, how does that even need a rule about it?
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
We ended up with like 1,000 Chinese people from all over the world testifying and picketing and complaining and doing all this stuff. They're running through the Capitol. None of them spoke English. So we got death threats in multiple languages. It was pretty wild. Third bill, we codified prayer in sports. Like, why is that even a question? If you want to pray, why can't you? I don't understand the boggle on this, right?
Yeah, I don't get it either. I mean, to me, it seems like it falls right in line with freedom of religion.
Last I checked,
yeah.
Right? It's one of those guarantees, right, in our Constitution.
Yeah.
So I just kept running bills like that. A couple years ago, I actually ran the first bill of its kind again in the country, Truth in Education on Socialism and Communism, which was pretty fantastic. The thing I love the most is it mandates that you have to have survivors of communism or socialism help build the curriculum. So we don't have to learn nonsense. We can actually hear the facts. And the funny thing is we're in here. We live in a state with a huge Cuban population, Koreans, Chinese, Vietnamese, people who have fled communism and socialism for generations. They all live here. I've got people testifying, telling me you're horrible because you're saying an entire form of government is evil and wrong. Yes, I am. That's exactly what I'm doing. Socialism leads to communism. Socialism and communism destroy countries, communities, and families. You have 3 groups of people. Those above the law, those beneath the law, usually their thumb, and those beneath the dirt who have been killed by those above the law. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's how this works. It always leads to the same thing.
Did you have any, citizens that fled those environments that were actually for communism and socialism? Not a single one?
I didn't advertise for people to come speak. When folks heard about this bill, they came in droves.
Wow.
From all the communities. We had Cambodians, we had Vietnamese, we had Koreans and Chinese. We had Venezuelans, we had Cubans, we had Colombians, Nicaraguans. They were all there. They were like, no. We already fled this once. We do not need it here. This is the most important bill that we've ever heard. Wow. And now it's being done in multiple states around the country, just like our bill banning China from buying our land has become landmark legislation across the state. Our constitutional carry bill was mimicked. Our prayer in sports mimicked. Many of the things we did in Florida are now what we're doing as a country. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Just to see that impact.
No, it's amazing. With the Chinese land buying thing, I forgive my inaccuracies if there are some, but there was something about the latest deal with China going back to allowing them to invest money in certain aspects of whether it's land or American businesses. Are you familiar with that at all?
Yeah, on the federal side?
Yeah.
Yeah, so in Florida, if you are affiliated with the CCP, you cannot buy real property, period.
I mean, it's good to hear on Florida. It does concern me a little bit on the federal side of opening that door. It's kind of surprising that that Trump's allowing that. Frankly, I can't say I understand it.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Look, man, when countries like China say they're on a new long march, they're out to be the economic champion of the world. They're out to lead, whether it's militarily, economically, or socially, everywhere. Yeah. They're not joking. They actually mean that.
For sure.
When Iran says death to America and they want Americans to die, that we're the big Satan, right? They mean these things. Yeah. They're going to try to kill you. They don't want freedom and peace.
No, I agree 100%. I am curious, I mean, since you brought up Iran, especially having been, long served in the military, spent time in Iraq, special operations, the involvement that Iran has had in the region, especially I believe because of our involvement in Iraq, I think we exacerbated that significantly by one, creating a bit of a power vacuum in removing Saddam, and that he was a big enough thorn in their side to really kind of keep him in check. And then also their involvement in, EFPs and, smuggling all different types of weapons into Iraq that ultimately ended up killing our troops. My question, I guess, is twofold. One is that what do you think in terms of justification-wise about our involvement in Iran right now? But maybe more importantly is why now vice 15 years ago when they were actively killing our people, not having anything to do with their country?
Yeah, so I think having someone who has the moral fortitude to push through is the biggest thing. Honestly, let's just call it what it is.
It's funny how sleep changes as you get older. In your 20s, you can run on 4 or 5 hours and power through. Coffee, adrenaline, sheer stubbornness. That just doesn't work anymore. Somewhere in your 30s, bad sleep starts costing you. The brain fog, the shorter fuse, sluggish workouts, that feeling that you're just not fully on. And most of us keep grinding through it instead of actually fixing it. My problem was never falling asleep, it was staying asleep. Once I was up, and I'd spend the whole next day paying for it. That's what brought me to Beam's Dream Powder. I wasn't looking to get knocked out, I just wanted real restorative sleep without that groggy, drugged feeling the next morning. Beam sent me this to try and give my honest take, and this is genuinely what changed things for me. Dream is made with a powerful blend of all natural ingredients: reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, apigenin, and melatonin. The chocolate peanut butter flavor is absolutely delicious. It's like hot cocoa before bed. And Beam has now improved over 30 million nights of sleep across this country. Sharper, calmer, more focused. That's what consistent quality sleep actually does for you. Go to shopbeam.com/micdrop and use the code MicDrop and take advantage of my exclusive offer for up to 40% off Beam's Dream Powder. Seriously, think about it. How much would you pay for a truly great night of sleep? With my discount MicDrop, go to shopbeam.com/MicDrop today. Missed calls and slow follow-ups are silent killers. It's how businesses leave money on the table without ever realizing it. You've got a solid product, a solid team, but if communication is slipping through the cracks, customers feel it before you do. It's why today's episode is brought to you by QUO, spelled QUO, the business communication system built so you never miss a call. Here's what makes it different. Your entire team can handle calls and texts from one shared number. So no more missed messages or dropped conversations. Everyone sees the full thread, replies are faster, and customers actually feel taken care of. And it's smart. QUO's AI automatically logs calls, generates summaries, and flags next steps so nothing falls through the cracks. And it can even qualify leads or respond after hours so your business stays on even when you're off. QUO is the #1 rated business phone system on G2 with over 3,000 reviews. There's more than 90,000 businesses that rely on it to stay connected, professional, and consistently reachable. It works right from your phone or computer. You keep your existing number, you can add teammates in minutes, sync your CRM, done. Money is on the line. Always say hello with QUO. Try QUO for free, plus get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/micdrop. That's QUO.com/micdrop. So something I keep coming back to. The world's central banks have been selling off U.S. treasuries, billions worth, in fact. And you know what they're buying instead? Gold. Physical gold, more than at any time in modern history. Think about that for a second. The people who print the money are getting out of paper money and into gold. So the question is, are you going to stay 100% in paper assets while the biggest institutions in the world are quietly making their move? My partners at America's Gold Company sent me their 2026 Gold Guide to review. And if you've got a 401k or IRA sitting there, there's something in here that most people don't know about. You can move a portion of it into physical gold under your name, in your control, with no taxes and no penalties. Go to claimmygoldguide.com/micdrop and get America's Gold Company's 2026 Gold Guide. It shows you how to move a portion of your IRA or 401k into physical gold. There's no taxes, no penalties. It's under your name, your control. Plus, you can qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. That's claimmygoldguide.com/micdrop. The central banks made their move. Wall Street calls for gold. Now make your move. claimmygoldguide.com/micdrop. Individual results may vary. Consult with your financial professional before making an investment decision.
Look, we act like our issues in the Middle East started with Carter. They go back to the Barbary pirates. The foundational time of our government, we just didn't understand the Middle East. The culture, how they work, how things think, the tribalism. We just keep missing something. The Carter administration and the shift that brought in this entire Islamic regime, we know who they are. They are bad people. They kill their own people. The IRGC is murdering Iranians. You know something is going wrong when people are cheering bombs being dropped to kill the IRGC, that they would rather get bombed than live underneath that control.
Yeah, I mean, I don't dispute that at all. I mean, there's a significant portion. I mean, I would say their entire government is evil and oppressive and tyrannical.
I agree.
I think you could argue, though, that that's the case in a number of countries, specifically sub-Saharan Africa, where even if you look at statistically how many people have been slaughtered from a genocide standpoint, it dwarfs what's taken place in Iran. And while we have some involvement in some of those countries, it's nowhere near to the same level. I guess I would ask, again, like I don't dispute that Iran is a problem. They need to be dealt with. What I don't understand is, like, why not do that from 2016 to 2020, or even going back to the height of the Bush years in Iraq, of when there's very verifiable proof that they are actively killing American troops that have nothing to do with their country, and we didn't do anything about it, and now we're doing it. Like the timing to me is probably what confuses me more than the actual thing itself.
Yeah, I think the timing was a little odd for sure. Would I have loved to just fix the actual problem? Sure. But the last multiple years of the war on terror, like, it was up, it was down, it was off. We're not going to do kinetic operations. They were never going to follow through. We were taking our foot off the gas, and we were just figuring out essentially how to lose the war, right? And how to fumble this thing in the way it went down. That's my frustration. The American people dealt with 20 years of war, our dollars being spent, our best and brightest, our young men and women over there defending our nation while abroad, and we lost the appetite to support that. And what happened here? I think you saw President Trump come in Venezuela. Seems like Cuba's on the list. In Iran, these people who had facilitated a lot of problems and a lot of issues through history, he just wanted to right the wrongs. And I think that he had a will to follow through. Now, I think like many, what we learn in the Middle East is they know the situation, they know how to fight this fight, and you have to be committed all the way through. The deal, I don't know if you can ever trust Iran to follow through.
Yeah, I don't. To me, it would be hard to trust them in pretty
Right.
much every capacity in that regard. Now,
We're on the same page.
Yeah, I think there's ways to force it, and it seems like that's being considered, it being implemented to the best of our ability. But
That's right.
The one thing I am curious for the criticism of those that would say, we heard Trump in the third election where he was reelected here recently, kind of historically and even recently running on the no new wars type of policy mentality of saying, hey, not opposed to using kinetic strikes or severe military action, but I'm not trying to drag us into anything. To me, that does, if we're being honest, conflict a little with righting the wrongs of the past and also saying, hey, no new wars, we want to
Sure.
pull back.
Well, I think certainly there's a conflict there. But I think the other side of this is having deployed, having seen those things, we know the reality of this. We know the threat risk. We hear about all of these things going on, fighting age males coming from multiple countries across our border. We know that they openly are making threats to the United States. And I think that he decided he was going to do this and move forward. And in my mind, the biggest issue in all of this is we better not nation build.
Yeah.
We don't need to be there for the next 20 years trying to prop up the Middle East. Do what we have to do, sign the deal. If a lot of this was economically driven because of oil and cost, whatever it was, the Straits of Hormuz, let it flow. I think you see Trump already talking about that the oil is going to flow, you're going to have better trade, and I think the world will be safer, certainly. If Iran was really close, and I don't have access to any classified these days, right? I'm busy doing Florida stuff. If they were closer than what we hear in the media to a nuclear weapon or those threats were valid, then certainly that will play out in time, and you'll understand some of the depth and breadth. Yeah. But, that's where I'm at. I'm okay doing this. If you're going to do this, though, you got to follow through. You got to finish the game, right? It's like Young Guns, right? You got to finish the game.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't disagree, and I think the struggle that I have, or maybe the confusion and the heartburn that I have with it is largely on messaging. The nuke thing I get, and that the thought of Iran having a nuclear weapon isn't something that excites me. I certainly would prefer that they don't. I also do wonder, though, the strikes that happened, was it Operation Hammer or whatever it was over the summer, 6 months prior to when we started bombing them, was supposed to have taken care of that. And, at first it was like, yeah, we totally set them, years back. And then 6 months later, it's like, no, they're 3 weeks away. It's like, I thought that worked. Did it not work? But even more importantly is that I think an even bigger issue than that, because from my perspective, if I try to play devil's advocate and say, okay, Iran is in bed with Russia and China, like if
For
right,
sure.
but if they're that hell bent on getting a nuclear weapon, like it would be far easier for them to just get one from Russia or China than it would be to develop their own process. So I think even completely, castrating their ability to enrich uranium and develop nukes on their own, frankly, does not prevent them from obtaining one. That's the first thing. The second thing is, from a Straits of Hormuz standpoint, like to me, that's the bigger thing, is that saying, hey, we have such a vested interest, not even so much for us. Yes, we have a lot of global economy tied into that place. Europe has far greater skin in the game as far as that goes. That, to me, makes more sense of saying, hey, we're not trying to take it over. We're not trying to run it. You just can't be, the corrupt toll booth, that's, just screwing everybody over and deciding who to let through like that. That, to me, seems like the biggest reason to do anything over there. But the way that it was presented, I just think they missed an opportunity to to really lay it all out at the same time and say there's a multitude of reasons. You don't have to agree with it, but we've decided it's in our nation's best interest to do all of these things because of these.
Yeah, and I think Marco did a very good job of unpacking a lot of that.
He did.
Marco has done incredible in explaining the complexities of everything that goes on across the Middle East. I've really enjoyed hearing him grow in this position with his 17 jobs or whatever he's got, right? He's really done a great job. Yeah. But, sure. But again, I go back to it's politics. Politics always struggles with messaging. Yeah. It always does. You end up overthinking things sometimes and overanalyzing and trying to put out something in a certain way and a talking point, and you just overanalyze it. It happens. Yeah. And I'm not condemning anything that the Trump administration did. And in fact, I support doing this. I hope and pray Iran sticks to the deal, though I am very concerned that they will follow through.
Well, yeah, I'm a little confused. I know this goes a fair bit past the state of Florida politics.
It does.
But I think, if you, at least from my perspective, the governorship of a state is almost a federal position, really. In terms of numbers, it's the same number of senators if you count governor and lieutenant governor of every state.
Well, it's a federalism.
Yeah,
right?
It's a big position, I guess, is that, the entire states as a constituency and their opinion on what the federal government does, I think matters. And
it does.
And a governorship being in line with what the majority or the collective majority of a state desires out of the federal government. But
what's interesting? In this country, there is only one state with a governor and lieutenant governor that are combat veterans. It's Florida.
Really? No shit. Oh, I didn't
That's
know
it. And I agree. It's an important thing in understanding how the world works. Look, you can't just run your state in a vacuum. Yeah. I would submit that that's what's wrong with several states out there. Yeah. They're just trying to look at it through their little lens. We're a $1.8 trillion economy in Florida.
Yeah, that's enormous.
It's like the 14th largest in the world.
Yeah.
By 2030, it'll be $3 trillion.
Yeah, and so I would love to ask, to put it in perspective from an optics standpoint. I think it's easy for anybody listening / watching right now who gets the majority of their news from either social media or mainstream media or even other podcasts, is that it's still a bit in a vacuum or maybe algorithm-driven, sheltered, et cetera. As somebody who's, kind of sitting at the co-throne of a state, is that something that you guys hear about much? If you put a percentage on, here in a month, here's what we hear about from the constituents statewide. How big of a percentage does what's going on in Iran fall into for what you guys actually hear about?
Well, we have a big veteran population, nearly 1.5 million in Florida. It's 1.2 million spouses, 2.2 million adult-age children of veterans. There's a big footprint. We have 20 major military installations. Certainly, when you're around those folks and they find out I'm a veteran or they already know, yes, absolutely. We all talk the talk, right? Yeah. We all have a hard time letting go, and once you've done it, you're always going to pay attention to it. With people who are a little less connected, honestly, it's economy. It's, how do I improve how much I take home? It's cost of living, it's insurance, it's property tax. It's how do we keep Florida the way we want it while we manage the growth of different things right now? Those are the things that I get asked more than anything else, because we've done so much right. In our state, we have paid down, I think, 55 or 60% of our state debt over the last 6.5 years. Wow. Your share of debt as a citizen of Florida at the state level is $227.
How do we get the federal government to implement that same?
How about we just do a budget, an actual balanced budget, just one budget. Stop kicking the can down the road, stop the continuing resolution, and do a real budget. Use the power of the purse for what it's supposed to be. But you mentioned something, brother, we're a republic for a reason. Yeah. States lead. If we don't lead on these issues, who's going to? It's Texas and us.
Yeah, I agree. That's one thing I don't understand. I don't remember where I saw it. And maybe it was even Warren Buffett or Thomas Sowell. I don't remember who it was, but the gist of it was, you could solve the budget crisis in 2 minutes by saying, hey, unless you have a balanced budget, balanced or in the net positive, in terms of expenditures versus what the revenue is, none of Congress or Senate gets paid until it's balanced. Like, that would probably fix it awful damn quick.
Yep.
It does baffle me, and I think to the Iran point, maybe that's why it has so much more bandwidth and attention, I think, than, say, Ukraine or really anything else that we have involvement in, is because of such a direct impact on the economy versus via oil prices.
Sure.
Is that our actions in Iran unequivocally over the last couple months have contributed to the cost of not just oil, because when oil goes up, everything goes up. Maybe that's why it's so much more of a hotbed topic than anything else. But
well, I think what I've seen, most people in Florida, I mean, we have 1.5 million more registered Republicans and Democrats.
Oh, wow.
Our Dems are even more conservative than most Dems, right? Like, they're financially and fiscally generally very well aligned, right? Like, in that regard. There's some far, far left stuff, certainly always. But we're a different state, right? Most people take the Iran threat serious. They understand they are a bad country led by bad people who want to harm freedom, and the Iranian people deserve freedom. I think generally people were there. The frustration was certainly like, hey, look, fuel prices are killing me. Gas prices for all the other things are killing me. I'm already paying more for insurance. I'm getting hit twice. Property tax is going up. Salaries are not moving commensurate to that. And we have H-1B issues right now where we're being told that we can only bring H-1Bs from other countries to fill those voids, that our people aren't qualified to do that. So we're losing that. We have illegal immigration issues where they're taking the entry-level jobs. Where do our people go? We have overqualified people taking dead-end jobs. That's an issue. Those are the problems they want solved, and it's got to take real focal approach, real leadership to solve these problems. It's not just an easy button.
Right.
The fuel was just the cherry on top of the sundae, right? There were so many things that people want to talk about. And, we have an incredible leader in Governor DeSantis. And, one of the things I loved about President Trump and his approach with all of this, he said, I want states to lead. Disasters, they should be a state issue. FEMA should be shrunk or killed off in his mind, right? And we want our states to step up and lead. And you don't have to ask us in Florida. We're not going to ask for permission. We're just going to go. So when we heard about our people trapped in the Middle East, when all of this was going on with Iran and Israel, and it was all crazy, right? We got calls from hundreds and then thousands of people. On the day before Father's Day, I loaded up in a plane from Tampa, flew from Tampa to Cyprus, Cyprus to Jordan, linked up with other friends in Gray Bull Rescue, and we did cross-border operations and brought home 2,300 American citizens. I was a seated state senator at the time. In the state of Florida, we took an active role. It's a disaster when our people are in harm's way. To me, that is money well spent. Everybody we brought home safely, soundly, and we put our money where our mouth was, because we said we prioritize our people. And even if it means flying into a combat zone to do it. Yeah. That's the kind of leadership I think we're able to bring in Florida. And I think it's a mindset shift. We're the only state doing that.
Yeah, I think that's exactly how it should be. And I agree. I think, FEMA, well, I guess I would ask maybe is that, and even spilling over into Department of Education, from my perspective, it seems like neither of those organizations or entities rather need to exist. I think the funding should just get kicked to the states.
Should be block budgeted, 100%.
From your perspective, looking at it from being obviously a state, but also one of 50, how would you kind of recommend or strategize from a budgeting standpoint, how that works, like federally? Would you say it would make the most sense for both of those entities to take that money and just disperse it to the states and let them decide how to use it in that regard? Do you think that budget should be shrunk federally and states should have to ask, for amendments or augmentations when there are natural disasters?
Yeah.
What do you think makes
I think your
sense?
base load from FEMA should be block budgeted to the states. I think you should let us use those dollars how we need to do in Florida. You got to have guardrails, right? Otherwise, you're going to have crazy states that spend it on Lord knows what, right? Like, I don't even know what California would do with it, right? It certainly wouldn't help with the wildfires because they don't do any controlled burning. Yeah. They don't rake the things they need to do, and they just make life worse for themselves, right? They've got to do better. You have to do that and provide guardrails. So to me, FEMA needs to be a best practice. Here's the accountability line. And you got to hold people accountable, right? Like if you use federal dollars and you misrepresent them, you should have accountability. That's got to be dealt with. Just like we should do as a state with our cities and counties. If you take state dollars and you misrepresent it or you lie to us, we should take your money back and you should pay a price, right? Like there's a problem here. Yeah. We have to respect that it's not the government's money, it's the taxpayers' money. And we want them to keep more of their money. So let's figure out how we can lessen the tax burden and be more efficient. I would love to see the Department of Education go away. Hard stop. I think FEMA absolutely can be shifted and go away, and maybe you have the federal best practices. This is what we think, but let the states lead. Honestly, people are going to follow and they're going to vote with their feet. I'll tell you, I think the VA should do the same thing.
Agreed.
Block budget the money to the states. Let us in Florida lead. I would love to do a proof of concept where you block budget the money, let us take over the hospitals, let us lead, and combine all that. I promise you can save money. I am a huge proponent of shifting how we utilize the VA hospitals. They are trillions of dollars underwater. Just to get them up to par, you're talking upside down, crazy numbers, trillions and trillions of dollars, while you can just use community care as the primary approach for that. What I think you should do is use those existing hospitals as a government-owned facility, but do a public-private partnership. Let's provide wraparound care. Let's provide homeless services and support. Let's eradicate veteran homelessness, utilizing those facilities with nonprofits and for-profits partnering together. We don't have to tax people into oblivion. America is a giving country. Florida is a dynamically giving state. We support the right things, but let them come together as experts to solve the real issue. I promise you, you can put an end to veteran homelessness for those who want to be helped. You can get better wraparound care by subject matter experts doing what they do. Imagine the transition when a state like Florida picks you up, connects you in the community, and makes sure that you don't fall behind, utilizing our connections, our capabilities. Right now, that's a federal issue. I think it's best served at the state level, working through our cities and counties to make sure that our veterans are 100% taken care of. As one of my policy proposals, I have what's called Operation Reveille. In first formation, bringing people together, we have 1.5 million veterans, just under. About half of them have no connection to the VA. So we are going to work with law enforcement. We're going to work with fire. We're going to work with city leaders, nonprofits, churches, and we're going to go find the veterans. We're going to make sure that they have the opportunity to sign up for the benefits they should have, and I want them to know that we are going to live up to our end of the bargain. We're not going to let you sit there. We're not going to let you feel like you should be mad at your government because they don't care about you. I want them to know that we have your back in Florida. Hard stop. The second thing is this. When we transition, we're going to have our own program that augments that even more effectively than the things we're doing now, working with nonprofits regionally, all those people who are helping transition, the Honor Foundation, and so many others. They do great work, and they run laps around what the Department of War provides. Let's do a better job, and let's show how much more we can do and give our veterans opportunities. But here's what I want, more than anything else. I want veterans to retire, exit service, come into the community, and do what we do best, which is lead, problem solve. If you've been in the military for any time, you have probably solved complex problems in a country that's trying to kill you with bubblegum and duct tape, working with people you don't agree with on most things. Every race, creed, color, gender, it's what our freaking country is. And yet we often struggle to transition into it. It's a different language, a different lexicon, and many of our people don't want to continue to fight and serve. I will tell you, to whom much is given, much is required. The grit, tenacity, the functional intelligence that our veterans bring, I want more of that here. Yeah. We are the most military-friendly state in Florida. I want us to be even more dynamic and push the other states, but ultimately, I want veterans to vote with their feet.
Well, I mean, I love the kind of the hybrid approach, because I've thought about it a lot, because here in Texas, and to your point, there's not really much of a variance state to state. Yes, some VA hospitals and clinics are better than others, all over the country, but there's not really a rhyme or reason to it, at least that I can figure out. And the frustrations that I've experienced here in Texas are significant. I've not had a ton of injuries, but I've had a few. And in every single instance, the VA has woefully let me down.
Yep.
Two surgeries needed that took months to even get an MRI. Over a month to even get into the first outpatient clinic that, then says, okay, yeah, you checked in. We'll send you to the Dallas VA for a specialist 4 months from now. It's just been an absolute nightmare. And the thought process that I had, and I'm curious to get your take compared to your solution of this kind of hybrid mechanism in Florida that you're proposing, is almost basically a complete removal of the VA and saying, if you're honorably discharged from the military, you basically just get an insurance card. It's a VA insurance card. And so now if you're not paying for every VA facility, the real estate alone that's sold off, the upkeep of equipment, the hiring of people, the prescription networks, all of that, even the utilities month to month for each place. My question is essentially, if your hybrid system of, having, partial government, partial state run, I love the idea of it. I'm curious, from my frustrations with the VA network here in Texas, is that if you have a situation where they just said, we're going to sell everything, every VA facility, sell the real estate. Now you're not paying utilities, the prescription network that the VA has, the doctors, the equipment maintenance, all of it. The amount of money, I'd be curious to know what is spent on the infrastructure of the VA facilities nationwide annually. But now instead of that, you get a VA insurance card, and so when you separate wherever you decide to live, you just go to whatever local doctor you want. The Obama, if you like your doctor, keep your doctor, pick whoever you want, go wherever you want, and then you just hand them that card and they bill it the same way they would Blue Cross Blue Shield or whatever else, and you completely remove it. That way it's 100% free market capitalism, competition, et cetera.
Yeah, you're actually saying the same exact thing. So I don't want to keep the infrastructure in those hospitals. I want them to turn into wraparound. I think that you should let the nonprofits, the community leaders in that city where those hospitals are, let that still be a government facility. It's there, but let them pay the rent. Let them upkeep it. Let them insert it in there. You can't tell me that Tunnel to Towers, the Gary Sinise Foundation, America's Fund, and all these great nonprofits out there doing these things, there's so many more, can't actually solve the homelessness problem. If they have hardened facilities across our country, certainly across Florida, that we can utilize. You could shift a lot of that into wraparound care. Bring in local healthcare facilities to partner right there at that facility. Give job services, education, help get people on their feet and close that loop, right? That's attainable. That makes that a balanced budget item, not a deficit for eternity. I completely agree. So what I'm talking about with community care is exactly that. It's you're going to go in there, and in Florida, like if you're in Tampa, it'll probably be partnered with TGH and people like that are incredible hospital systems. You'll get better health care, you'll see a doctor quicker, and you'll get more balanced in health care and preventive care than you ever would in the VA, right? And James A. Haley in Tampa is a fantastic VA in many regards, but it's still the VA. The only exception to me are some of the polytrauma units. They're pretty spectacular in what they do. That may be the one anomaly where you could probably realistically keep that, but I think you could co-own, manage that at a state level with someone like TGH.
And I assume either of these, it's essentially the same solution. There's some nuance, maybe differences, but in both of those cases, it would have to be spearheaded by the federal government. There's no state that can opt out and do that, right?
Yeah, the federal government would have to allow autonomy in a state to do a proof of concept.
Yeah.
And if that happened, then in Florida, yes, we could absolutely make that happen.
Is that something that you've run up the flagpole, so to speak?
So I had an opportunity to try out to be an undersecretary for Veterans Affairs for transition and benefits. Pretty cool. Another thing on the list of things I never thought I would do when I grew up.
Yeah.
But this is actually something I briefed there.
Yeah.
And something that many are interested in.
Yeah.
I think it's time to not take half measures.
Yeah.
It's time for great big swings. Let's just fix the problem. The problem with the VA isn't that there aren't great people in it. It's that you have solved the problem by adding money and people and bureaucracy and another wing on the phone tree. It's just too much. It's like 3 battleships tied together and you can't turn.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think the size and scope is the biggest hurdle, is that anything at a certain size becomes inefficient.
That's right.
And I think, any time you could take a federal entity and disperse it back to the states, I'd be all for it, really, in pretty much every capacity.
I agree. Any government big enough to give you everything can take anything.
For sure.
Let's not do that anymore.
Amen. It's interesting, and I love the perspective of throwing as much as we can back to each state. And I also think, in almost a free, not almost, I mean really in a free market sense, it highlights the states that are doing a piss poor job, which to me kind of forces them to, either fix it or find somebody who can. When it's just, it's the federal government, it's like this obscure thing, that you can't really pin down and whatever. And so I think that's the best way to fix a lot of federal issues, is to just let the states hammer them out. Are there other big state issues that you plan on tackling that would also accomplish that same goal federally?
Well, I think education, we all agree on this, right? FEMA, definitely. The VA, definitely. Those are the big 3 pillars where I think you can do some incredible things. Healthcare overall is a very complex situation. There's so much that goes into it. I would love to have more autonomy at the state level, but in the end, our system, that's going to take work. I think you've got to get that. That's the long pole in the tent over time. But across the board, we've really got to pressurize the entire system at the state level. Yeah. Historically, in politics, you pick a winner, you pick a loser, and you kind of just move the problem around the chessboard, right? You're going to have to pressurize the whole thing. You want to draw this down. We need to start talking about the marketplace. Is it a federal marketplace or is it a state marketplace? What's covered by insurance? We got to bring in more telehealth. You got to bring in and find ways to keep people out of the ERs, out of the step downs, so really you can manage that footprint. And then we got to bring more people through healthcare, make it manageable. What's the number one killer in a hospital setting? Do you know by chance?
I would guess either malpractice or infectious disease.
Sepsis.
Yeah.
Sepsis. You know what the secondary characteristic of sepsis is? It's a lawsuit.
Oh, really?
So you want to drive down cost. We've got to end things like sepsis. That's investing in more technology, better healthcare ways to solve problems. Having been injured and had things inserted into my body from screws and wires and batteries and everything else, finding ways to stop surgeries or to make sure things are bacterial static when that happens is a big win. So when you have implants that are metal implants, historically they had to be put in there, then they got to come out, they migrate out sometimes, huge risk of infection. So, there are companies right now that are building in Florida that have a bacterial static program. I think it works. It stops fungal and bacterial infections, but it also reabsorbs. So it's a mineralized compound that goes in as an insert, right, as an implant, but then it becomes bone. So now you don't have to have another surgery.
Oh, wow.
It just remodels. So stopping infection on the primary side, secondary side, as you're cutting the surgery, that cuts lawsuits. That drives down cost. That's more providers staying in the system. And interestingly, every time I talk healthcare, there are hundreds of doctors who have just left healthcare because of the system. They love medicine. They love treating people. They want to be there and take care of folks. But in the end, the system around it, from pharmacies to big pharma to the hospitals to co-pays and insurance and you name it, they just get tired of the drag and the draw. We got to do that. And I think rather than being in a rehab mindset, we got to get more prehab. And that's why I love this whole MAHA movement. Yeah. Understand what you're putting in your body, what you're feeding yourself and your family, what is in the food and why is it making us have issues. Yeah. I love that concept. So a prehab mindset, teaching our kids to eat well, understand what's in their bodies and live a healthy life is critical. And I think that's an educational aspect as well. You got to teach kids how to eat healthy, really eat healthy.
It's a huge thing that I think gets so overlooked. Most people, I think, assume that there's a medication or a something.
Well, that's the problem, right?
Yeah.
You get a medication, it runs for perpetuity, and you never really get healthy because you're hooked on something else.
Yeah, you're just managing symptoms. Instead of identifying the root cause. Comparing state to federal again, from your perspective, what is the federal government not doing budget balancing wise that Florida is able to do?
Balance our budget.
I mean,
have a budget.
How is Florida able to do it? And like, what does the federal government need to do to emulate Florida's approach on it?
You're going to have something that has a negative incentive. If you don't perform, you don't do this, then bad things happen. As representatives, they've got to use the power of the purse string to make this happen, right? That's how checks and balances are supposed to work. That's a very fundamental aspect of our republic, and we're not using it. This continuing resolution just kicks the can down the road year over year over year. It's just not going to work. We in Florida have been very good about making sure that is the number one priority. Our only thing that we are required to do is pass a budget. That has to happen. The last 2 sessions, I will tell you, have been frustrating. It's a push. We had to do special sessions on the budget. That's not typical. That is not acceptable. Those last 2 sessions were not good enough in Florida. We expect to do this the way we've always done it. I would submit that I don't want Florida to be anything like D.C., but I would love for D.C. to be exactly like Florida.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I see so many positive things, and Florida, I think, very similar to Texas, has huge influxes of not just people from other states, i.e. California or New York. Because it seems like California moves to Texas, and New York moves to Florida. But the emulation of the both Texas and Florida, it seems like they tend to set the stage and provide a good example of that A, it is possible, and B, gives a bit of a roadmap on how to accomplish it. I wish that the federal government would take a page out of the book.
Well, we've got to. Look, it comes down to accountability.
Yeah.
Right? But you got to have a leader at the top, and I love what President Trump is doing in many areas, but we've got to get legislators into Congress who can stand and drive this home. You've got to have a cohort, 30, 35 people willing to stand and just do what has to be done. Like, we're not budging, we're not moving. This budget has to happen, a real budget with a real process that goes through the checks and balances and the approach to budgeting that we're supposed to do. Use the purse strings, make it happen, and don't move until it's fixed.
On that, I mean, how big of a role does, from your perspective of being in that position for a few years, does federal politics and alignment with party?
Yeah.
There's Republican Democrats in Florida, and then there's on the national scale. Do you find that plays a big role in kind of how you're having to navigate state politics in terms of whether or not it aligns with the national party and all that?
Yeah, for sure. Look, what we do in Florida really has had an outsized impact on what the federal government's doing right now. On a good side, I have seen more cooperation, more corroboration than in any time in my life around government, from the federal government, the state government, and local. Look at what we're doing with the 287G and the illegal immigration programs. Like, Florida is hammering away. We're doing great work. And you're seeing federal agencies working with state and federal agencies working with other federal agencies. Those things don't happen, historically speaking. And they're all rowing the boat the same direction. That's incredible. But you see federal politics weigh in, and it does skew. And everyone starts to look to the federal government for guidance or how they're operating that. And you see that with how they select who's going to run for office sometimes, right? That really matters. When there's an endorsement early on in a race, it shifts the dynamics. And sometimes it makes the process a little bit harder. But in Florida, it's unique. We are a state unlike any other. We kind of beat to our own drum. Florida guy is a thing, right? We also have Florida gal. They work in cohort. The president, early on endorsed in this race that I'm in, running for governor. And, that's made it a challenge and an uphill struggle. But in the end, I believe in what I'm doing. I don't have to talk about leading the state of Florida. I'm the lieutenant governor under Ron DeSantis, the greatest governor in our state's history, arguably the greatest governor in America's history. He's a once-in-a-generation governor. He has held people accountable, stood when others would have failed, and Florida's led, and America's won because of it. You see that start to shift a little bit, and we start thinking more about what's going on in D.C. and the federal policies than we listen to our people. And that's a problem. It really is. We have to make sure we're listening to our constituents, nearly 23.5 million people in the state of Florida, and what goes on in your district, in your part of the communities. I live in the Bay Area in Tampa. We are far different than Miami, far different than Jacksonville, far different than Okaloosa, right? It is what it is. You got to understand your people and support them and fight for the things that are important to them. If we all start looking at the federal government, we as a state start to lose our identity. I am a states' right guy. Anything not clearly enumerated in the Constitution should be a state right issue. And that's what we do in Florida. We don't ask, we lead.
I love that perspective. You mentioned that having Trump's endorsement early on has become a challenge. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, look, I'm running for governor. I've been in for a few months. I started off at 0. And, you and I talked about this early. Look at my track record of where I came from. I grew up in a trailer, right? Adopted by my grandparents, broken home, broken family, got shot, blown up, lost a leg, kept serving, got a nonprofit job when I retired, and somehow got into politics. And in 4 years, I went from a state senator to lieutenant governor to running for governor. When President Trump endorsed early on, like way back in March, I don't think he really knew the facts and the truth about Byron Donalds as a candidate. There were a lot of things about him that are not commensurate with our voting bloc, with our people in Florida. We are a tough on crime state. We hold people accountable. He's a 2-time felon, and he finally came out and admitted that he had sold drugs. That was a revelation while on the campaign trail. He also eulogized George Floyd during the Summer of Love. That's a problem. I don't think the president knew about that, knowing what I know about the president. He also ran bills that would have softened our criminal stance as a state. That law in California where they won't prosecute below $1,000, so people rob stores at $999. He wanted to raise ours to $1,500, and then dropped it to $1,000. The bill didn't pass, thank God. He wanted to raise the age of a minor from 16 to 25 for felonious crimes. That's making career criminals. That's a problem. You look at his stock trading online. That's a real problem. He makes Nancy Pelosi look like a chump. Like you want to make money, follow what he does. That's not how our system works. And I think what you see with a lot of voters is when they find out about it, they're very concerned. If you're going to follow in the footsteps of Governor Ron DeSantis, you better be able to stand up, fight, lead, and win for Florida, because we're not going to accept anything else. It isn't talking about it. It's being on the ground, leading, making sure we're dynamic. I don't want Florida to be a second, third order state. I want us to lead. We should demand excellence in every single thing we do. And that's what we should expect from our governor.
Yeah, I love all of it. I'm curious, I think one of the points of contention that a lot of folks have that are not in politics that see, whether it's Congress, Senate, governor, you name it, anything that has, the public eye and attention drawn to it is kind of the mudslinging back and forth.
I agree.
And I'm not saying that, it sounds like everything you said is pretty factual and not, just trying to drag somebody through the mud. But is there a way, from your perspective, having gone through the process, multiple times now, to conduct a campaign where you're really only singularly focused on what you bring to the table and not blowing the other guy's candle out to make yours shine brighter kind of thing?
I would love to get there. I will tell you, that's where I want to get to. We're the United States of America. We the people, the American people. Those words have meaning to me. Like, you like me, man. I fought with people who I didn't agree with politically. I didn't agree with on much. And together we served under the same flag, the same unit, often in the same teams. We just were different people. But when it came to the mission at hand, we focused on that, right? Fundamentally, we find ourselves at a time for choosing. We've got to choose who we're going to be. If we continue down this path of isolating and separating from the left and right, where does this end? I don't think it's good. Yeah. I think you're coming around from a macro political perspective. We went from this outside-in approach where you're screaming from the edges to more of a populist thing where From, Trump's fingers to God's ears, 3 executive actions pass, Congress passes a law, and it's going on X rapidly. Like, things move quick. And I love that he's actually getting stuff done. I think where we go from here, we have a choice. It can go back to inside out, what I would characterize as Reagan and Tip O'Neill, where you can agree on 85, 90% of the issues, economy, education, safety, security, things that, like, 10 years ago, boys and girls were just, that's what they were. There weren't 11 genders or whatever the number is now, right? It wasn't boys participating in girls' sports. That wasn't a question. That just never would have happened. Those are common sense things that we lost our way on, and now we're fixed. We're moving the right direction, I think, in a lot of these issues. We've got to get to that happy place so we can start focusing on drawing the bonds tighter. The nations around us try to separate us by race, by creed, by color, by gender. Many nations have been a part of our political cycle on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, putting ads out there. But unfortunately, I'll tell you, I sat on the sideline and I didn't throw barbs. I didn't throw elbows. I didn't get out there and say any of these facts. But here's what I realized. If we don't shift this and put it out there, we're going to find out in the general election because the left doesn't care. They're going to throw that out there, and we cannot go backwards in Florida because everything we fought for will go backwards. We balance our budget now. Imagine where we're going to be if you have 4 to 8 years of Democratic leadership in the state of Florida. Everything is going to change. Yeah. That's a problem, and that's really where it came from. If I really want to protect our state, our people, I think I have a responsibility to say the facts, and every single thing I said is verifiable online right now. You can Google every single one of those. I will not attack his family. I will not attack his kids, anything like that. That's not games you play. But I will call out policy wrongs. I will call out things that aren't commensurate with our state's values and principles because it's going to come out. Yeah. And it's going to hurt our state long term. And you talk about our country, I want Florida to lead. If we want to protect this nation, God willing, we have another Republican after President Trump. But if it doesn't, and this country goes blue, you better have governors who can move, who can protect this. And you got to start getting a plurality of governors working together on the same mindset. Many of my bills ended up in 10 states, 15 states, 20 states across the United States. We can help protect the nation, and we can help get a plurality and start shifting how legislation, how our thought process works as a federal government, because as states, we have that ability to lead and influence. Yeah. That protects our country.
I love everything you just said. One thing you did mention was like state sponsor or foreign involvement in political campaigns, which at least online seems to be a growing sentiment in terms of the opposition towards it. Have you seen evidence in the state of Florida of foreign state involvement?
Well, I think you see it every day, right, with ads and all the things that move on. We do a pretty good job of rooting that out. We are very aggressive in these issues, but it's an open world, right? It's all right there.
Well, yeah, how do you kind of reconcile the First Amendment protection versus fighting slander and foreign involvement? Like, where do you draw that line, especially if a foreign actor dumps money into an American nonprofit or whatever, an entity within the United States to slander somebody? Like, how do you draw, or where do you draw the line?
See, and it gets so much more complex with AI and how fast things are changing. They will rip your image, your voice, everything, make videos that you look just like you, sound just like you, but it's not you. At what point do I have a right to my personal image and voice? And how do we protect that? We're stepping into an area where we're so far over our skis with technology that we have to understand how it impacts our individual freedoms, our rights, and our right to protect ourselves. I will tell you, there are things that come out there from AI on videos. It is just nasty. It is completely horrific. And it's said on all candidates, against people, and I don't love that. We don't do those things. I wish they didn't. How do you find some of these foreign countries involved through nonprofits? It's very, very hard. Yeah. You've got to dig into it. That's why we have FDLE, FHP, people like that who are out there trying to track that down through the systems. And if you find it, now you can deal with it from a national security perspective, because that can change our state, which can change the nation, all of that. But you got to put the work in and prove it, because we do have rights, and we do uphold our Constitution. And I will never err on the side. Like, your First Amendment rights are unequivocal. They are clear. Our document, our foundational documents are resolute. It's our Constitution. It's not a suggestion. We always honor the right for free speech.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's an important backbone to kind of how you approach everything. Have you seen clear-cut evidence of foreign involvement that you can say
so
this country...
In Tampa, I just helped author a couple of white papers. We actually see CARE, nonprofit arm, in Tampa working with local schools, local nonprofits, pushing money in there. You see Code Pink investing money in multiple organizations, foreign organizations, and then doing the same thing here. And the connective tissues there. Now it's a matter of doing the work, following the dollars, and trying to find what you can about that. But yes, you see it. We have to call it out, and we have to do an investigation. And, that's the process.
Can you identify what countries you've found?
Many.
You won't say which ones?
I will say some in the Middle East and some outside of that.
Yeah. But you have no interest in identifying by name in particular?
We've seen ties to Iran. Yeah. We've seen ties to Saudi. We've seen ties to China.
Yeah. Any? Have you come across any instances where Israel's playing a role in any of the same type of stuff?
Well, I think you see many avenues out there from countries. I personally haven't seen them do anything that steps over. I haven't seen anything pop like that. The things I'm talking about came from CARE, the Muslim Brotherhood, people like that.
Yeah.
And there's deep ties going back into generations of terrorists.
Yeah.
I have not seen anything where they have overstepped in Florida.
Yeah. With the relationship of, again, going back to federal government versus state government and kind of that almost awkward alignment, how big of a role, I think for you personally, does being aligned with the National Republican arm, being a far-right conservative, and how do you navigate that? I mean, like, say hypothetically, because Trump is the president and he's a Republican, if he makes a decision or does something that maybe you personally don't agree with, or maybe you agree with it, but it's different from what the constituents think, or, like how do you navigate the wanting the thumbs up from the big brother of the Republican Party nationally if it's not something that you agree with, and how do you kind of decide how to navigate that? I mean, to me, it seems like it would be
right is
difficult.
right, wrong is wrong. I'm willing to stand on my own, but you got to make sure you understand the facts and the details. Often there is so much push, and again, this is an online issue where it's an avalanche of information, but it's only partial information. When you get into the details, it's far less of a problem sometimes. Sometimes it's worse, right? But you got to stop, think, you got to analyze what goes on, and then you have to respond, right? I follow that process. I don't want to be the first one out. I'm not in a rush to get it wrong. I'm not in the rush to get a scoop. I want to do it right.
Yeah.
And look, if I have to stand, I will stand alone. Look at Ron DeSantis. COVID is the biggest example of that, right? Like, Ron DeSantis stood in the breach while our president, Biden at the time, Congress, our own state, world leaders, they all attacked him over COVID. And he was right. And he stood there by himself. And soon others started coming alongside him, Abbott and others, right? But it was a state issue. And there was only a couple of states doing it right for quite a while.
Yeah.
And then the country started to come around. I mean, what was it, 3 years after the California finally demasked their people? I mean, my God, what are we doing?
Yeah.
It's just wild.
Yeah.
But to your point, it is interesting. If you push back too hard, you run the risk of getting hit, of this becoming very, very ugly. And, it's a balance. I respect our president. I stand alongside him, but my responsibility is to be the number 2 person in the state of Florida. And I've got to stand and do what's best for the people of Florida.
Have there been any things since he's come in office that you found yourself standing alone on or disagreeing with, I guess, that has made it uncomfortable for that
Yeah, not necessarily with him. I think there were some things early on with immigration reform that was very interesting. We had some bills that actually had his name on it early on that were not commensurate with what he was putting out. And yet because his name was on it, we were being told, well, you just got to support this. Did you read the bill? The bill is not good. It's going to take us back 10 years. It would have softened our stance, not hardened our stance. So literally there was 3 of us who stood. And the president, I'm sure he was frustrated at first until he got the details. This ended up being better for him. What we did led to our 287G agreement, setting up and having all 67 counties working together on illegal immigration. But literally it took 3 people standing alone against everybody else.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not naive to the fact that, national politics play a role in state and even local politics. And
well, it's all relationships.
Yeah, I mean, because you see, whether it's endorsed by so-and-so or not endorsed by so-and-so, I mean, there's ways that both sides use endorsements, both positively and negatively. One of the things we mentioned early on that I said we'd come back to was the kind of the messaging or the tone of the president that for me, I mean, I admittedly voted for him all 3 times that he ran.
Same.
I would say I want every president to be successful, but I also think it's important to, I guess, voice concerns or disagreements or, objections to certain things. For me, the 2 things I find myself being frustrated by, and you feel free to punt if you don't want to get into it, but it is mostly the decorum. To me, we talked about military leaders that, carry themselves in a way, Odiero, you mentioned, and when I think about, all the military leadership that I look back on that I served under, where I could very easily point to that person and say, that's how you do it. Every single one of them conducted themselves in a way that was inspiring in that way. There was not a childish aspect, there was not a name-calling aspect, there was not an emotional kind of overreaction to certain things and calling people names and stuff. And I just feel like especially at that level, when you're talking about the presidency is that, talking about Abraham Lincoln, Ronald Reagan, there's a lot of things that Trump has said or done or not even necessarily an action, but a way that he's carried himself that I just think I can never imagine either of those guys ever doing things like that. Do you ever struggle with that aspect?
Look, I am a person, I don't like to use words out there in the public. I would rather have a conversation when there's a problem behind and then come out united in front. But, one of the things that I think we can all universally agree on in politics is that we had gone so far down this path of word salad, saying a million things and not saying a single thing that mattered. And where was that going to end, right? Just how does that end? It got so out of control. People would just talk and talk and talk and talk and not say a single point. You had to have something that was dynamic to rip us back into an area of logic, right? I really do. I think the system tends to equalize itself and balance it out. The human body has a set pH. Too acidotic, too alkaline, it starts to have problems. I think that's what you saw. I think you see us now at the point where does this go if we continue to go down this path? I don't think it's good, but I think you're starting to see an auto-regulation to that as well. And we're going to find ourselves in our space, in our right spot. I think President Trump was exactly what we needed to rip this thing out and just speak the truth. Now, do I do that? No, I don't. I don't. I really struggled, actually, politically. And this is something I've spoken to with the governor and with many people about my concern about throwing barbs and hitting people. But I really came down to, if I don't make this a competitive primary and I don't expose and speak the truth, they're going to find out secondhand in the general election, and then our whole state's going to pay a price. Yeah. I think I'm more of a line, like you. I'm a military man. Say what you mean what you say, and do so with decorum and honor. And I try to uphold myself that way. But hey, he's got his communication style. I don't fault him for that. I think it was exactly what we needed, and I'm grateful for his leadership. He has shifted the dynamics in politics greatly. But we've got to stop with some of the derivatives, and it's the people who aren't Trump, who can't handle that dynamic the same way, who don't have the human intelligence. Have you seen him work a room?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
it is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, to me, anybody who finds himself in that position has to be masterful at that, or you'll never end up there. I mean, even Biden, I think in his later years, there was a cognition thing, but
Sure.
but prior to that, he was a sharp guy.
Yeah.
You know, verbally on his feet, he was as good as anybody, and was, you know, very, very good at managing rooms and dealing with people and whatever. So yeah, I mean, and I've heard the same thing. I mean, I've never met him, but I've known enough people that I trust their opinion and have said, you know, behind closed doors, he's a very different person. I mean, shit, even Bill Maher said that about him. You know, he's like, I went and had dinner with him, and I was like,
having seen him at Mar-a-Lago and places, he's a gentleman.
Yeah.
He is very kind. He understood, and I think academically, that if you were going to take us from where we were, you had to be dynamic, because if we follow the process, it was just going to get muted.
Yeah.
There was no way to change it. You had to rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah. And
I think you've done that. But, you know, I hope where we go from here is that inside-out approach. I love President Trump. I voted for him 3 times. That's where I'm at. But I think after this, where we can get to agree on more things than we disagree on within the United States of America, our people, our citizens, aren't the enemy. The enemy's out there. They're the ones who want to kill us. Are there people who align with them? Sure. Treat them individually. But as a country, we got to come together and coalesce together. We live in the greatest country on God's green earth. I believe I live in Florida, right? It's the greatest state of the 50. You'd argue Texas. I get it. You'd be wrong. I'd be right, though. And, you know.
No, I mean, you know, credit where it's due. Florida is an amazing state, and I think they're both great states.
They are.
I think, you know, both are bastions of kind of the principles that we're talking about. And
that's right.
You know, there's a few others, but I mean, even your home state, I would argue, is similar to that. I think it's slid a little bit with the influx of Californians, probably.
Yeah, out to Bozeman, it was a little crazy.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, you know, to each their own. Everybody has their own communication style. I'm just a big fan of, you know, say less, do more. Let your actions do the talking.
Deeds, not words.
Yeah, I mean, because I think it's just hard. It's harder to attack your principles and positions if it's all or largely through actions, you know, because I do feel like there's probably a component of there's a distraction with dialogue, you know, that I think is counterproductive. But
Mike, you're actually hitting on something. If I could undo one thing, it would be social media. Its impact on the world is crazy. Yeah. And I understand it's a part of our day-to-day life, but we end up trying to worry more about telling the story than actually doing the operation.
Yeah.
Right. And that's not just in politics. That's in life. That's in business. That's everything. We're so encumbered by our phones. Yeah. And my worry is, where does this go in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years with AI and all of this stuff? You know, we talked about it off camera, I think. Educationally, have you thought about our children's digital footprint?
Yeah, it's massive.
K through 12, there are huge risks. Their frontal lobes haven't developed, and they're involved in a 360-degree asymmetric approach where people are attacking their online presence every single day, whether it's small or big. They're using YouTube and everything else for education. They're using Minecraft for education. And when third-party programs leak information, now that's out there. Where's this going to be in 5 or 10 years? We've got to start figuring this out and protect our kids.
I agree. I mean, you know, having kids that are a little older than yours, you know, my thought process, even in the book that I wrote during COVID, aptly named Unfuck America, was there was an idea in there of, you know, basically treating social media like a driver's license. Is that, you know, while I understand free speech and I agree, you know, there's a reason why you can't drink until you're 21 or own a firearm until 18 or vote until 18 or drive until you're 16. And I think social media has shown, both in the studies of, you know, brain development, dopamine, the addiction aspect of it, it's every bit as dangerous and complex as narcotics. And I think, you know, something as simple as, you know, creating a system where, you know, you essentially have a driver's license pairing to a social media account. And I also think that, there's probably a benefit. I can see, some complications or even downsides to it, but of, having registered accounts on social media. I'm not saying have an inability to have anonymous accounts, because I do think that that's an important aspect. However, by separating it into, your driver's license number now is also your social media profile, and it's verified through all of the main ones. And so now you can't have one of those until you're 16. And even separating it algorithm-wise, where there's a huge push to be shown verified accounts versus non-verified accounts, and even settings where you only see verified if that's what you want. But to me, what that does is that now as an adult, just like buying alcohol for a minor, if you let your kid on your social media account, well, everybody knows that is verifiably you, and now you're letting your child use it, then the same penalties are incurred, and then you're at least keeping kids off of social media until they're at least 16. Like, to me, something like that. I'm not saying that by default that's the perfect system, but using that as kind of a starting point of saying we've got to figure out some way to manage this. Is that something that you have?
So we actually worked on that a couple years ago in Florida, in trying to protect our kids from this. We don't let them use their phones in schools. We've made them put them in a bag and lock them away. And people were like, oh my God, they're going to fall apart academically. They improved. Yeah. They're so distracted by their phones. I mean, look at everybody out walking around the community. They're looking at their phone. It's buzzing, it's beeping, it's distracting them. That's happening in our schools. You cannot tell me that schools are moving as efficiently as they can. There's a lot of room for improvement. That's why, again, I want to move towards classical education, which uses AI only as an adjunct, that uses technology as an adjunct, and goes back to making sure we prepare them for foundational knowledge to problem solve, right? Yeah, we went through this. We started talking about 16, and then it rolled back to social media, and there was a legal side of this that was a fight, and there was a lot of pushback from parents who didn't want the state or the government stepping in and saying what they allow their kids to do. There's many folks who use that as a babysitter, and there's some who probably use it the right way. But in the end, we also saw kids lying about their age, registering, and now you go to that known account, right? Yeah. How do you verify? And that's a huge discussion, and it's one that I think we're going to continue to talk about. When you talk about the frontal lobe and the addictive nature of social media, you see dopamine bumps very similar to cocaine, right? You do. It's inherently addictive. And when you have kindergartners and first graders talking about a YouTube channel they want to start, or they did start, what are we doing? Yeah. You should be out there on your bike, playing in the mud and dirt, doing stuff and building your body, growing your femoral base, hardening your bones, getting stronger. Yeah.
It reminds me of AI and talking about it as an adjunct. You and I are from a generation in the military that I think this speaks to probably more than either before us or after us. Is it reminds me of GPS versus map and compass. It's like, yes, GPS is amazing technology, and why not use it? But you need to know how to use a map and compass. And
sure
having learned on that and then been able to infuse GPS after we spent years, navigating that way, I think it's kind of that same thing. It's like, AI is a great tool, but it's that. If that's your crutch and foundation, you don't really even know what you're talking about, and then that's where people get into trouble.
100%.
Speaking of AI, and I'll tack data centers onto that. That's been a big topic of discussion in I guess online or social media, and even in the news. Of does Florida specifically have a stance on regulation, or you can only have so many? How does that coincide with the power grid and the draws of that and water? And have you looked at nuke programs, or what's kind of they're kind of all related? What's
100%. It's all interrelated there. Look, it's all kind of like the circle of life, right? In The Lion King. Yeah, it's all connected. Look, we do have a stance. We've been very aggressive in managing and understanding this. Let's just identify. Data centers have been around for a while. A data center is not a data center. One isn't like all of them. Hyperscalers, that's a real problem, and it's one that is now shifting and they're being confused with every data center. There are data centers that have been sitting in neighborhoods for decade plus, right? No one even knew about them because they didn't have an energy draw. They just enabled regular business like they have for years. I'm less concerned about those. I am very deeply concerned about these giant hyperscalers, and I want to break this down. And while it applies to the smaller data centers, it is 100% aligned with making sure we tame the beast that is a hyperscaler. One, Governor DeSantis has led. He's already put out a law that says we will not allow the energy cost to be transferred to the people. That's a non-negotiable. We're going to have to continue to modify that language and lock it in tighter and tighter, because what happens is people find a crack and then they broaden it out, and soon others are exploiting it. So you got to go close that, and it's going to cause another. It's like whack-a-mole. It's political whack-a-mole. You're going to have to go fix that. The second piece is the water. We got to make sure that you're not affecting the aquifers, you're not causing second, third, or fourth order issues in the water cycle, and you're certainly not diverting that away from people. One hyperscaler takes the same amount of water as a city of 50,000 people.
Can you clarify number-wise what constitutes a hyper data center versus a traditional one?
Yeah, look, we have, I'm trying to think, in Florida, there's a handful of projects right now. It's just the sheer amount of data being processed. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, and I don't want to misquote that. So let me just leave it at that. It comes down to sheer numbers and how much draw it's going to take. In terms of where this is going to go in the future, that third part in that third rail that I wanted to talk about, and this is really critical, you got to know who the customer is. Who are you inviting into your state? You know, if you're inviting someone who has horrible desires for where the state moves, they have a bias that's far different than the state's lexicon, where what our people want, we don't have to allow that. And the people in the communities have to have clarity in who they're bringing in. If you're not, you don't know what's happening. You really don't. And I think you can't separate the data centers from AI. With AI, first off, that algorithm up front, man, it's got to be data pure. It really does. If it skews too far one direction, you're going to shift how people think. Like, as a military guy, if I wanted to take over a state or a country, I wouldn't raise a rifle. I would use AI. Yeah. Kids right now, they don't trust and verify. What they do is look at their open AI or chat GPT, and they just trust it and they go. There's no thought. You talk about the map and compass versus the GPS. Remember the pluggers?
Yeah.
Those were not accurate at all. You were lost more often than not because it thought you were where you weren't. Yeah. And thank God you could read a map, right? AI is the same way. Where we're at right now, sometimes it is off the reservation. If you don't trust and verify, you think you're in an ocean, you're actually in a poop hole, right? And it's not good for anybody. Yeah. Fix the problem. There's two more things. Have you seen the homicides and suicides caused by AI?
It's crazy.
God, that breaks my heart as a dad. I couldn't imagine.
It's crazy.
That has to be dealt with. That is unacceptable. Anything that drives that has to be dealt with. And the third thing is this. There are people right now who want to use AI and just let it rip. Just let it go. Let it take jobs and run things because we can be dependent on it and we don't have to do those pieces anymore. You should be horrified by that. That doesn't end well in my mind. You have to keep a person in the loop. I'm going to use my story as an example. AI would tell you that someone from where I was, who came from a broken home, who didn't have any background, who was adopted, who grew up on welfare, has almost statistically zero chance of success, because that's generally how it is. AI would have told you when I got shot, blown up, lost a leg, there was zero chance I would have requalified at 18 years of service, because there was zero chance. AI would have told you statistically I would have lost my race in the Senate. AI would have told you I would never have become Lieutenant Governor of Florida after 4 years. It doesn't happen. All four of those things have been refuted as true because AI does not understand the human dynamic, the soul and the spirit of a person. And we have to have a human in the loop. Imagine if healthcare or insurance or planning goes straight to AI and it goes off the island. And now you have second, third, fourth, fifth order effects that we can't fix quickly.
Yeah, I mean, to me, you could say, well, would you trust a judicial system to letting AI make that decision. No, you wouldn't. Well, it may not be as serious in other comparisons, but the principle is the same, is that there has to be a human gatekeeper to all of it. I mean, I've had the same conversation with, which I'm sure you can appreciate, even though it may not apply to the state of Florida's politics, but AI targeting systems within the use of military is, where do you draw that line of it? You know, because the hypothetical that I think presents a difficult decision-making process is, let's say you have an armed drone that's providing ISR type capabilities for a special operations unit that, you know, realizes that they're about to get ambushed, and literally the split second of having a human determine is that accurate or not versus letting a drone target and ultimately extinguish human life on its own. Where do you draw that line? You know, and to me the right answer is always having a human backstop. The concern, or the tough part is that if our adversaries aren't doing that, is that, you know, is it this losing battle of, even though we're, you know, morally trying to, you know, have the right approach every time, is that it ends up, you know, getting our service members killed because we're, you know, a split second too late. And that's a tough decision-making process. I still think it's always the right answer to have a human sign off on it. But as a state government, going back to the data center stuff, how do you regulate that while still maintaining the constitutional principles of free market? And
right now there are three macro perspectives. There are people who want what I'll call like the raise the racing flag approach, just let it rip, and how it happens, it happens. That's not going to go well, right? We know how that works. There are people who want this like European Union style moratorium. We're just going to say no, they're not happening. That's basically the gun control conversation the other direction.
Right.
That doesn't work. We've been arguing the other side of that for years. Let's not go backwards on that mindset. Where I lie is where Governor DeSantis is and how we've built our approach. You have to have guidelines, right? You have to have guardrails that give directives, and then you let the local governments have a voice and get clarity and make a decision on what you want to see. As a state, here's what we think. Here's how this works, and here's our policy. In the state of Florida, it's like 75% of people who don't want data centers, the hyperscalers, is really what they're worried about, right? They're not really sold on AI as a long-term thing because they've been around it now for a couple of years and they see the faults. I think people are starting to come around and the market's starting to stabilize. So we have to understand that and balance it. But to your point, if we start just squashing business because we're scared of it, that's the gun issue again, right? Let's not fall on the wrong side of that issue. So the only way in my mind to really handle this is to provide guardrails, give ownership at the local level, and make sure there is radical transparency in what's going on. And that's why you have to know who the customer is. That is something that I think I'm the only person running for governor is talking about that. If you don't have radical transparency, you don't know if there is a foreign country driving this. If you don't follow the money and investigate that, you know?
No, I couldn't agree more. As a state, I'm curious, because I just don't know. Have you guys looked at small regional nuke plants for power? And
you're speaking my love language here, Mike. I love this.
I mean, how does that, like, how do you navigate that with the federal government in terms of what's allowed versus, like, how much autonomy does a state have to implement something like that?
It's hard. Permitting is really, really hard right now for nukes. I love microreactors. I love small modular reactors. I think they're generally where you're going to see the energy grid go.
I mean, to me, subs and carriers are the most prime example of a best use case example of that, you know.
And you can build a very strong and resilient energy sector that doesn't have this giant mega facility, right? You can spread it around there and shift the system. So if something happens there, you're not going to kill the entire grid around it. You know, we get a lot of hurricanes in Florida, right? It's just the reality. You get some in Texas. Historically, it generally balances out. Your coast gets a bunch, we get a bunch. Right now, the emphasis has been in Florida for a while, right? We had 50,000 power trucks lined up at Helene and Milton, just outside the hurricane swath. Our grid, when it went down, there was tons and tons and tons of power outages. It took a Herculean effort to get those up. Most people had power restored in 5 to 8 days. If we can build a more resilient system where there's less space between the energy unit and the transformers and the stabilizing systems within that, I think you can build a much more resilient grid. Where 5 days isn't something we have to strive for. It's easy.
Yeah.
But small modular microreactors, 100%. Data centers, interestingly, I think that actually starts solving the problems. You put a microreactor in a data center, you're solving one part of that three-legged monster. The water is a bigger issue, and I don't know how they're going to deal with that from a hyperscaler standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it seems like in a state like Florida, especially being surrounded by water, desalination plants.
I agree.
Seem like they would make sense.
It's so cost unproductive right now. So one of the things I would love to do, we have, as I said earlier, a $1.8 trillion economy. We're going to other countries and we're seeing what they're doing. We're building relationships with other states, other countries, and we are welcoming people in to do business in Florida. Many people in our state are probably tired of hearing me talk about it. I want to bring back more shipbuilding to Florida.
Yeah.
We build a lot of small craft, but one shipbuilding facility is 50,000 jobs above 80K. That's real money with benefits. That's another 25,000 jobs or so inland above 65,000. And it's actually, 5,000 above 80K. I'm a little tired, sorry. I got my numbers whacked off there. 30,000 jobs above 65K. Those real jobs, real opportunities for Floridians right now. That's good. That's great benefits, great opportunity, and it's real jobs that energize our economy. But think about the second, third, and fourth order effects as it trickles down through our economy, into our community. Now you start seeing a healthy balance in our system. Small businesses thriving, more businesses opening. That's what we want to see. Energy is certainly part of that. And I think you could build that out, transform that, but we got to also make sure that the power companies in Florida, they understand that. I think there's some space right now to do nuclear, small modular and microreactors on federal reserves. I think there's a process where we could make that happen, and it's something we should look into.
Yeah. I mean, to me, if there's an area that I'm encouraging or would be okay with the federal government actually getting involved, it would be that.
It's like deregulate.
Yeah, there's few things that I think that the federal government actually can augment or help out, but that would be one of them. Is a national push to implement.
Well, you know what? They don't have to do anything. They have to stop some of these crazy laws that were put in place 20 years ago. Just deregulate and let states lead on where it should be.
Yeah. Are there any political issues that I haven't brought up that are worth talking about?
We talked about illegal immigration. We talked about job growth. One of the things, I just want to close a loop with education. When we think about the military, one of the things that used to drive me crazy was the good idea fairy, right?
Yeah.
Like someone will come up with a concept, this is the greatest thing, it's going to save lives, it's going to change everything. And we spent years jamming it into a gap that didn't exist. Gap analysis saves lives. It saves billions of dollars as well. First off, you got to do gap analysis. So I talked about my basic premise of education. We got to solve the digital footprint for our kids. I want to move to classical education. The third leg of that is the average tradesman in Florida is 58 years old.
Wow.
The average farmer is 58.9, maybe even 60 or 59 by now, right? I got to check on that date from a month-to-month basis. That's crazy. If you feed yourself, you eat food, you should be concerned about that. That's a problem. If you want to have your toilet flush or you want power in your house, you should be concerned. Certainly if you like air conditioning, you should be concerned, right? Those are all jobs that are available. We've had this inherent bias across the state of Florida and really across America for a long time that you had to have a bachelor's, a master's, or a PhD to be successful. That's just not true. So for me, I want to embrace lifelong learning as a state, but I also want to understand that there are many paths to excellence. Yeah. Whether you want to go get a job, start a business and be an entrepreneur, you want to go to college or you want to go to the trades, we're going to have to help prepare people. That's why changing our model to a classical education system is so critical. What I want to see is apprenticeship at 11th and 12th grade. I think it changes the game. Pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship, but let's work with local businesses. Let's work with regional businesses. Give them adjunct instructor ability so they can come in and teach welding, plumbing, air conditioning, whatever the requirements are in your local area. provide real opportunities and get kids aligned with jobs. But here's the critical component. Let's take our commerce sector, align it with our education system, with our universities, our state schools, and our elementary to high schools, your academic pipeline, and let's build those up in the channels of excellence. So we're compounding and building on that. So if you want to get a job, you're prepared from a life skills standpoint. Let's teach people how to balance their checkbook, how to file their taxes. Home ec probably saved lives, right? Yeah. I'm just saying, bring those things back to make them productive citizens, ready to live their lives and lead.
I agree, and I think so much of those things that you just mentioned are also largely AI proof.
Sure are.
And I would say, even taking it a step further, they're going to become even more, from a demand standpoint, even more important.
There's one thing we got to throw in there. It's law enforcement, fire, it's emergency management. I think you can do the same thing there. We struggle sometimes to get kids to want to go be law enforcement. It's a noble career, but we have this Explorer program that should be at every single high school. There should be an opportunity for those people who want to do it to go in and work there and understand the dynamics. You can get some of your classes knocked out, some of those ride-alongs and things, so you understand the system and how it works. And then just see if you really want to do it. Yeah. But I think we also have to, as we talked about earlier with eating healthy, we got to remember that it's a strong body, a strong mind, and a strong spirit, right? You don't have to pick a religion, but you got to understand we operate in all three spaces. Mm-hmm. We got to make sure kids move. K through 12, you should be outside moving at least an hour a day to have a healthy, balanced life. You want to drop down healthcare costs? Let's make people exercise every day in high school and build a foundation for a healthy life.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, to me, they're all connected. And, what you're saying, it's very easy for me to sit here and hear that and say, yeah, I agree completely. We'll use the classical education as an example since you brought it up here recently. What separates this is a great idea and I agree to actually being able to implement it? I mean, because to me, that's where I think most people get lost. It's like you hear politicians on stump speeches or rallies or whatever, and they're like, hey, I want to do this, I want to do that. It's like, yeah, I would love for you to do that. How do you actually do that?
Sure. So first off, you got to have a chartered path. You cannot move to classical education overnight. You can't just hit the easy button and say, boom, you're there. It ain't going to work, right? This is likely something that will take 3 to 4 years based off early estimates. So you have to plan that out. What does that curriculum look like? How do we shift from where we are to where we want to be? How do we balance all those requirements? We have been moving generally that direction to building good citizens, understanding history. That's been a slow path towards academic excellence as a state of Florida. I'm very proud of. I think it's time to rip the Band-Aid off and just mandate that. You're going to have to sit down with schools, with educators, with the system. You're going to have to develop a plan, understand the gaps to make that happen, and then institute a project path. And then you have to hold people accountable. What is the cost in a dollar standpoint, the cost in a man-hour standpoint, and keep people moving? And I think you have to have radical transparency. I'm a huge fan of the GUI, the GUI, the dashboard, right? Give people updates. Tell them the truth. It doesn't have to be bombastic. It's just got to be clear and data right there for people to see. I think you want to open up a bit more transparency in the government. Sometimes it's hard to find a person. I want to find ways to have communication. Something I'm toying with. Do you remember when the president would come on television when we were kids?
Yeah.
And talk to the nation? Why don't we do that more?
I think we should.
I think as a governor, that's something I want to institute. I want to sit down and talk on all channels to Florida, to the Floridians, to the grown-ups, the kids, and I want them to know, here's who we are, here's what we're doing, and here's what we're doing with your money. These are the things we're worried about, and these are the things we're proud of.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, to me, it reminds me, just like with a business plan or even a military,
that's all it is.
Or a military operation, is that here's the objective, we're at
it's point a planning
A.
cycle.
Yeah, here's point B, here's how we get there and execute it. For the school project specifically, does the Department of Education get in your way in terms of being able to accomplish that, or do you have?
We're assessing that right now. Ideally, no. I think we'll be fine. Yeah. I'm not going to ask for permission. As long as the constitutional lines are with us, we'll be fine. Yeah. I'm willing to just push. Yeah. But look, we got to make this, because I promise you other states will follow when we do it.
Yeah. What's the biggest lesson that special operations taught you about leading in politics?
Say what you mean what you say, and then get to work.
Yeah. That seems pretty cut and dry. What does a lieutenant governor do in support of the governor? Like how do those two positions delegate or separate tasks, and what does the bulk of a day look like for you?
So it's very strange. Every state is different, right? There's no normalcy to how this is done. Some have a role with the Senate. Some have almost like a duality, like Texas. Your lieutenant governor and governor are both equally utilized. It's very unique. In Florida, it has been tasks assigned from the governor. I had one ask when I got to be the lieutenant governor. I was like, boss, please don't make me sit at a desk. I'm going to drive you crazy. I'm going to drive me crazy. Everyone's going to be mad. I want to be out there on the ground in the community doing what needs to be done. You know, I want to be at that point of issue. That's why I ran to the Middle East and brought our people home. When a hurricane happens, I expect to be on the ground, leading from the front, not asking for permission, but doing what has to be done, solving problems where people's lives are in the line. I always stand with our law enforcement, our veterans, our firefighters, our first responders. I lean in on those issues. But you know how many people as lieutenant governors have my background ever?
I can't imagine.
Zero.
Very many. Zero, really.
If elected, I believe I will be the first governor to ever have been a Green Beret, certainly to have been a Green Beret and work in a special missions unit.
Wow.
That's a very unique thing.
Yeah.
You know, the world's changing. The threats are real. Drones, drone swarms, cyber offensive operations, the duality of how those things operate combinatively is a huge threat pattern.
Yeah.
We've got to take care of all of that. So that's an area I've leaned into because I have a unique background, and the governor gives me the autonomy to get in wherever I need to. I'm very lucky to have a governor who has faith and trust in who I am and what I stand for.
I think that's crucial. I mean, because if you didn't, what's the point in having a lieutenant governor? You know,
right.
I mean,
it's just another guy roaming around the food space, right?
Yeah.
Come on.
In terms of your interaction with him, I mean, is it? I assume it's a daily thing, but is it not? I mean, are there?
Well, you know, I would have thought going in, it would have been. It can't be. There's times when he's going this direction and I'm going that direction. I feel like we kind of fly by each other as we go by. It is so busy. Yeah. The thing that I've loved about Governor DeSantis, and I don't see all governors do this. He is so thought out in his approach on this. Executive energy matters. You better be out there moving. Don't wait. Lead. He demands it.
Yeah.
He sets that tone. And I'll tell you, I wasn't going to be slower than him. I wanted to move about 10, 15% faster, at least, right? Yeah. I wanted to prove a point. That's what I love. You lead, follow, or get out of the way, right?
Is there a thing that has surprised you the most about being lieutenant governor?
Yeah. One was how much you move around the space all the time.
Statewide, you mean?
Statewide, yeah. I mean, holy cow, man. I hit 5 to 7 events at least every single day.
Wow.
I've hit, on an average week, 8 to 12 counties.
Man.
Like, I'm all over the place. There are norms across all 67 counties on certain issues, but the wide variability from county to county, even within the counties, from city to city, it's hard in a state like Florida with this many people in that many counties to really understand that until you're out there. Having the ability to go talk to people in the community and really be able to digest, look, like I know that's what the western side of the county thinks, but we think a little differently here. That's very unique. And it's a shift in our people. And you start to see where some of our state approach starts to rub this group a little raw, but not that group. And you just start to understand what is the map of politics in Florida. And you've got to stay on top of that. You got to have your finger on the pulse and all of those things. And it's not on Twitter. You got to be on the ground talking to people. And if you're not, you're losing ground.
Yeah.
And they feel ignored.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. You know, the Twitter thing or just the social media sphere that's such a skewed perception of reality because it's so algorithm driven by what you've looked at, you know. And so I think it gives most people a woefully false impression of what things are actually like.
Once you're in the rabbit hole, it just keeps you going down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, you just go further and further down it, and it further puts blinders on to everything other than what you looked at. Is there a biggest challenge from your perspective that Florida faces moving forward?
Sure. So the biggest thing, and this is always an ongoing discussion, and I think it's one that, truthfully, our founding fathers wrestled with. where do you step in as a state? Where is it a local leader issue, a county or city level? It's the same thing with our federal government and states. It's finding that balance of local ownership. Fundamentally, I am a local rule person. I think you need to let the local government who is closest to the problem really fix the problem. But sometimes they are so egregiously out of line with our ethos, our principles, and they're hurting so many people that if you don't step in, it's neglect.
Yeah.
You're not doing your job as a leader. Our job is to protect and preserve our people. Stop. That is the most important thing.
Yeah.
And if we're not doing it, that's where we have a problem.
I can certainly imagine the difficulty in finding the line of,
Yep.
Where to step in and where to kind of let them handle their own business. Looking back at everything that you've done as we sit here now, what are you the most grateful for?
That this is still possible. I mean, look at my story, man. I grew up on commodity cheese.
Yeah.
On a broken home. Served in the military, and somebody like me can be in here talking to you on a podcast, across so many people in the country, and get to be the 21st Lieutenant Governor of Florida. Yeah. And God is good every day. He is, and this nation is blessed. And in America and in Florida, in Texas, in so many states, somebody who came from nothing can rise to be the Lieutenant Governor in just a few short years. Yeah. Man, that's incredible. But if I can do it, good Lord, man, anybody can do it. The American dream is real. It's achievable. You can't let people think that we're this evil monster that the media wants to put out, or other nations do. Man, we have been blessed, and it is so worth defending and fighting for. It's here, it's real, and I'm so grateful for the things that are there, and I wouldn't trade a single thing I've been through, because it got me to be here today.
Yeah, I take that same approach, and I love looking at things that way. You've mentioned faith a few times. What role does faith play in your decision-making process as the Lieutenant Governor of Florida? And do you instill or draw a line in trying to separate personal religious beliefs and, kind of doing the church and state separation? Like, how do you navigate?
Yeah, so I think fundamentally we were raised on and built as a nation on Judeo-Christian values.
Yeah.
We are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I see us that way. Faith is a critical part of everything I do. I wish I was a better person every day. There are still things that I fail on that I wish I did better. We all make mistakes. Nobody is perfect. But I also understand that there's grace, and God lets us grow from those moments. It's a buddy of mine, Cedric King, double amputee I ran marathons with, wrote a book called The Making Point rather than The Breaking Point. And I always make this point, those things that can break you are the very things that make you into who you're supposed to be and where you're going to go. You got to have perspective.
Yeah.
I've gone through a lot. And I'll tell you, there were times in my military career when you see things that, oh God, man, it just rips your soul apart. Mm-hmm. When you see innocent children just killed and horrific things happen to them, things that I never wanted to see. But you understand that those things happen not because God allows it, but because men have free spirit and will, and that happened. And I hate it, but I also realize this: if good men and women fail to step up and protect and preserve what we have, we will go away just like any other great nation. We have to fight to protect what we have, and I'm not going to fail. I signed that contract, and if I was asked to deploy tomorrow, I'm sure just like you, I would do it and I wouldn't blink. Mm-hmm. I would do it instantly. And if it cost me my last full measure, I'm fine with that. I wrote that check a long time ago. I've almost cashed it a few times.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with it. But brother, we've got to do that. And that's why I'm so bullish on getting our veterans back into it, because I think our veteran community, when they get out of the military service, represent the very best of what America is. It's people from every walk, every race, creed, color, every thought process. We don't care if your money is with your family or if you didn't know who your family was, right? It doesn't matter. You can do great things in America, and that itself is worth fighting for. But we have to remember who we are.
Yeah, amen. I love it, and I appreciate you prefacing that way or characterizing it that way. I think it's super important. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that I should have or that you'd like to mention before we wrap up?
Well, selfishly, I am running to be the next governor of Florida.
I don't think it's selfish.
Yeah,
myself, but
I'll plug my campaign a little bit. You know, when I jumped into this, I sat and we thought about it and we prayed about it. And my wife and I, actually, she wasn't very supportive of me becoming lieutenant governor. She's like, look, our kids are little. Why would you do this? And I said, hon, who's going to do this? If you want our people protected and you want to make sure our kids have a future, we can't fail. The governor needs to have someone who understands and has his back without equivocation, who will be there and do the right things. And if I decide to run for governor, it's because I see other people who don't espouse our values. And if Florida falls back, America falls back. There is no state who does things like we do. We are the free state of Florida. And I say it almost every day now. When Florida leads, America wins. We want to make sure America wins. So I jumped into this race. I am exactly who I am. I am not a polished politician. I am a leader. I'm a warrior. And the tipping point in my mind was simple. How many times did I wish our politicians had a spine of steel? They had that warrior ethos. And then I thought back against the cascade of my life. It takes heat and pressure to temper steel. It does. Yeah. God's not trying to break you. He's trying to make you into something stronger. And I have gone through all of these things. You know, we talked about it when I got injured. I didn't want to stop serving. I did everything imaginable to continue to do that. But I hoped this point would come because it makes a point, and it was the number one area where I had to grow up. Stop trying to force things. Just let go. Understand that put your time in, work hard, but stop trying to force an issue when it's dead. Just let it go. And when I did that, this whole world opened up. And I found that I had opportunities I didn't know existed. My whole point is this. I'm running to be the next governor of Florida for a couple of simple reasons. I'm a warrior, not a politician. We don't need politics as normal. We are going to hold the line in Florida. We will not fall back. Governor DeSantis was a generational leader, but he became America's governor when COVID happened. You cannot go to the bullpen and warm up as the next governor. You better be day one ready. When I was appointed lieutenant governor, Ron said, Jay is day one ready. If something happens to me, he can lead this state right now. No questions asked. We won't miss a beat. I wouldn't appoint him otherwise. Our people deserve leaders. No more politics. We do not need more D.C. in Florida. We need more Florida up in D.C. That's how we do things. Yeah. We are going to lead. We are going to win. And the best days of our state are ahead of us. The best days of America are ahead of us. But it's because of people like us fighting for what matters. But it starts right here in races like this.
Man, I love it. I can't vote in Florida, but if I could, you would have mine for sure.
I appreciate it, brother.
I appreciate you coming. I assume that running for governor is the front sight and probably only focus. Have you put any thought into what's after that, or is it just focusing on this?
I am hyper-focused on this. I think the biggest mistake many people in politics make is they start stacking targets.
Yeah.
I want to be, look, I have a few simple thoughts. I want Governor DeSantis to end his term as the greatest governor in our state's history. And then it's my job to make him the second best governor in our state's history. Yeah. And I expect that. Demand excellence in all that we do. Yeah. And where it goes from there is fine. Be a consequential leader and make a difference. If you want to hear more, go to jforflorida.com. That's my website. You can check it out. Follow us on social media, all the normal things.
Awesome. Well, I can't thank you enough for taking the time. I know you're absurdly busy, and to come all the way here and share your story and message means a lot to me, and I'm honored to be able to interview you. So
well, brother, thank you. And I know you were incredibly patient and gave us a lot of grace when we had to cancel a couple times. So thank you.
Truly my pleasure. I just thank you for coming and talking with us. To the viewer/listener, I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, you can choke yourself. And until next time, this is Mic Drop.